Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family, we chose this one. This episode 146, Hobbs and Shaw, Lap 7. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Snowflake Memories. Snowflake Memories is a small family business in rural Vermont. They were in operation since 1998, selling Valdani thread and other products they designed to customers in stores in North America and Europe, online and through event shows. Shout out to Snowflake Memories. ecrater.com.
After the break, we will be talking with Nico and Kevo once again about Hobbs and Shaw. But Joe, first, extracurricular activities. What have you been up to in the last couple of days?
We've been watching and catching up on a show that I had talked about before, but I kind of put to the side, Love After Lockup.
Oh, of course.
So we've been watching a lot of Love After Lockup, catching up, and it's as delightful as we imagined. We turned on Double Jeopardy because it was on Pluto.
The Ashley Judd one? Isn't that?
Yes.
No. Yeah, okay.
Yes. So we were watching that, and Rachel was like, oh, I love this movie. I love these kinds of movies. We're big, thriller kind of peoples. And she was like, I want to see more movies like this. We got into a huge Michael Douglas kick again. And last night we watched The Perfect Murder.
Okay.
With Gwyneth Paltrow. Because, Michael Douglas had a run there where he just did all thriller movies about murders, twist movies. And we are just getting ready for Thanksgiving. Rachel's parents will come visit for Thanksgiving. We're having a very small Thanksgiving because they, have just been home, working at home for the past forever. And when I came back from Pittsburgh, I went and got tested at work because work is actually wonderful about testing. They have a really cool testing center at work. Schedule online. You walk in. I swiped my ID badge from work. The woman there handed me a swab and a tube. You go into these sheds. Did you ever go to one of these fairs or home and garden shows where they have single person saunas? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of like an outhouse, but not like that, not for pooping.
Yeah.
So they have these sheds that are in plexiglass with a foot door opener, and you go into the shed and you swab your own nose, you put it in the thing, come out of the shed, you drop it in the box, and I got my testing results the next day. It's incredible. The whole process took me about 35 seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Realistically, it took me 3 minutes total from checking in to walking out the door of the place. So I was like, this is awesome. Work has started recommending that everyone that's at work gets tested twice a week. Not to be scary to everyone else, but we were a little ahead of the curve when this stuff started. They're expecting it to get much worse, so stay vigilant. Everybody listening, please. Hopefully you got your flu shots too. It's going to be a long winter.
Oh, I did not tell my flu shot story. So I got my flu shot a couple of weeks ago, and I go to my local drugstore and I get a flu shot.
Yeah.
Puts the alcohol on my arm to prepare it and puts the shot in and has this Band-Aid. It's I don't know where I put it. You're not bleeding. And I was like,
yep.
Oh. He's like, if you're okay, I'm okay. I'm like, yeah, okay. And he kind of stared at my arm for 30 seconds, it didn't bleed. He's just just move it in case it gets sore. But I was like, okay, weird. And I just walked out it was the weirdest because not that I'm ever a big bleeder, but every time I've gotten a shot before, I've needed a Band-Aid, and this was oh, maybe I'm a superhero now. I don't know.
Not to negate your fantastic epidermis, but I feel a lot of the times when Rachel and I go and get our flu shots at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the easiest thing to do. A lot of years we have very similar symptoms. One year I remember I got it and I the next day I woke up and my arm was really sore, and she had the same thing. This year I specifically remember too that we both got our shots and there was very little to no blood. I think it's the shot this year is very strangely not bleeding. I don't know if they changed the needle tips that they use or what, but I had a very similar experience where I wasn't bleeding this, because she looked at it, she was like, oh yeah, it's probably somewhere there. And she threw a Band-Aid on, and when I peeled the Band-Aid off when I got home, there was nothing on it. So
weird.
Yeah, it's a weird year, man. But that's cool.
We're all superheroes. We've all been bled dry, I guess.
No, just you. Yeah, just you.
I'm trying to think if I've done anything of note in the last couple of days. I've been playing The Last of Us. Well,
Xbox.
PlayStation, yes. Got my Xbox. Talked about those. The only Xbox game I've played is the new Tetris game, which is kind of an old Tetris game that came out a couple years ago that I played on PS4, but I love my Tetris.
My friend was saying this too. One of my friends that got an Xbox, he's he got it launch day, and he's like, dude, new Tetris is sick. And my other friends were like, bro, it's Tetris.
But it's not it's kind of but it's not like if you're a Tetris head like me it's different. Like there's
What?
the Drake meme where he's like putting his hand away and he's like yeah like that like there's the two pictures of like one that he likes and one that
Yes.
he doesn't like.
Yes.
The one that he doesn't like is just like new Assassin's Creed, all these other games, and then like the one he likes is like Tetris on the new Xbox. Like yeah, because like it's for a very specific. Like I bought this game I think for $40 when it came out like 3 years ago for the PS4. They added like maybe online multiplayer to this. I haven't played that yet. It's a very good version of Tetris. Like that's all I'm gonna say. Like it's Tetris. At the end of the day, it's Tetris. But like
Yeah.
there was this game on PS like the Vita and maybe the PSP called Luminous Lumines, where they also put it on Xbox 360, where it's kind of Tetrisy, but like there are blocks and it's kind of syncopated to music and it's cool and whatever and like it
Okay.
clears in a different way and that was a ton of fun and like this is kind of it's mostly Tetris but it's a little bit of Luminous and the different levels have themes and different music and just overall a great experience plus it's
Dude, I
Game
love
Pass so it's
Tetris.
free so Tetris is where I've been at so I've been playing The Last of Us which unless something goes horribly wrong I'm going to finish it this weekend which I'm very excited about so I've been playing The Last of Us and I've been playing Tetris but that's all I've been up to because again it's only been like 2 nights since we recorded last time and last night was all Spider-Man 3 for Friday's
Yes.
episode, and Hobbs and Shaw deleted scenes, which we'll talk about in this episode. So I don't think anything else of note to report.
One other thing that I got that I'm really excited about, like a new kitchen toy, is that I know that I've mentioned this before, but like I bitched about like the ice machine in my fridge.
Sure.
Like, and I've been saying how it's
Mm-hmm.
like such a pain in the dick, and like it only makes ice when it wants. Usually, Rachel's mom likes mixed drinks, right? Like,
Okay.
we drink beer, but we drink mixed. I'm a boozer, so I'll drink anything. But like when she's here, she wants mixed drinks, and I was like thinking like, oh man, it's gonna be Thanksgiving. She's gonna want mixed drinks. Like we're gonna have to go buy ice, whatever, whatever. But we were at BJ's, which is like Costco, and they had a tabletop ice machine.
What do you do? Like, plug it in and you pour water in and it just makes ice?
Yes, and it cranks ice, dude. So I bought one of these, and so I'm like, oh, all excited that I can use this. It is actually a great thing to have like for parties and stuff too.
Sure.
Not that we're having parties right now, but like eventually, it's like one of those things. Like as an adult having a house, I'm like, eventually one day, like this will be a good thing to have. Like it'll live in the basement forever, and then come up like for a holiday
Twice a year, exactly.
twice a year, three times a year, and you're like, yeah, that was great to have like in this moment. That's it. So I didn't
Yeah.
have to buy a bag of ice.
Yeah, I don't have an ice machine here. We didn't have one in Texas, so it's a combination. Like what I've done is a combination of ice cube trays and then just buy a bag from Quick Check or whatever every
Yeah,
once in a while. And I'm like, I just want like a tub of ice.
that's what my dad does too. Yeah, like he has like 6 or 7 ice cube trays that he just like constantly empties into a bin.
Speaking of ice trays, that's not a transition at all. We have a Patreon page in the show, toofast2forever.com. Shout out to Cassie Wilson, Jake Freer, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleinman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party,
Ooh,
Haley Gerbies, Wes Hampton, Christian Larson, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden, Renato DiDonato, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a.
Montez.
Montez. Whew, that was the first time I ever did that in one breath, I think. I did not take a breath. That was
You're
new
training.
ground for me. Please do
Oh,
not support us on Patreon because I can't do any more. But if you want to, toofast2forever.com, early access to episodes, bonus content, Fast and Furious Minute document, all sorts of stuff at toofast2forever.com. Also, email address family@cageclub.me and Joe. We have kind of three, but really two emails.
kind of 3, but really 2.
Because the
Okay.
first email we got from Justin Kleiman was, do not read until episode 150. So I have not and will not read that for a couple more episodes. That was the first. That's not really an email.
Yeah, it's just like hold.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Break in case of fire.
Yes, exactly. The next email that we got is from Jerry Robinson, subject line, welcome home.
Okay.
Hey guys, so I'm back home in Daly City from my week-long trip to Tennessee with Ileana and her brother Adrian. It was amazing and short since time went super fast.
Mhm.
We had a bunch of homemade soul food cooked by your aunt, and no, we
Ooh,
didn't go to eat the place you recommended, Joe, too, but we did go to Ruby Falls in Chattanooga.
I don't know what that is.
Let's
Ruby
look it up. Ruby
Falls.
Falls, Chattanooga. It is a series of underground cascading waterfalls totaling 145 feet in Lookout
Oh,
Mountain near Chattanooga, Tennessee. Very cool.
dude, this is gorgeous.
And he includes some pictures. I would assume that this is what they are. Give me 1 second to put them in the chat. We stayed in an Airbnb in Clarksville, 30 minutes from Nashville. Chattanooga was a 3-hour drive. Saw the outlet malls in Nashville. Not much deals unlike last time. Overall, good time. And despite the global bastard, we made the most of it. Oh yeah, we also did some hunting. I used a 12
What?
gauge 22 caliber shotgun
Whew.
and killed a huge raccoon. Now to quarantine guys, be fast, never last. So he has a picture of the raccoon, R.I.P. And then him in the falls group photo with masks, and then him and Ileana just posing, big old smile in front of this waterfall. So very, very cool.
That's really cool. I want to check out these falls. I like things like this. I remember I probably mentioned it, but when Rachel and I went to Arizona and the Grand Canyon, we drove north and went to Antelope Canyon, and I thought that was like one of the coolest places we've ever been to. So I'm like super amped on these kind of natural wonder type places, you know.
Sure. Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is beautiful. I can add this to the list next time I go to Tennessee, go to Nashville, or go to
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga, the Bourbon Trail. I've been wanting to do, right? So
There are a couple states in this country that are like wildly beautiful. When I was in like Carlsbad Caverns, like is just one of the most amazing places I've
where's
ever
it at?
been. That's in New Mexico.
Okay.
It's in like I want to say southeastern New Mexico, like relatively close to Texas. I think it's
Mm,
somewhere in New Mexico. I know that. Arizona overall is beautiful, and then
yeah,
like Montana, like Glacier National Park is just staggering. Like Glacier
Montana's
straddles the
beautiful, dude.
American Canadian border. Just the park is beautiful. And there's like this trail that I took, like an easy trail, and then you just take a left down this path, and then it just opens up into like this lake in front of a mountain. It's just like, oh my god, like just what? Like
Yep.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's like
Montana and Arizona are just crazy beautiful.
Montana's super slept on, dude. I loved it there when I was there.
Well, shout out to Tobin Addington. The Addington family
That's
raised
right.
and Eisen as well. Born and raised there. Tobin lives there still, which is why I
I
shouted him out.
forgot.
Eisen over in Oregon. Gross, ugly Oregon, which is also beautiful, by the way. But yeah, Montana, Missoula, all of it. Just glacier, everything about Montana. Big Sky State, they call it.
Big Sky State. Yep.
Well, Jerry, thank you for writing in. Glad you
Thank
had
you.
a successful trip. Seems like everything is great.
Yeah, dude, that's super cool.
In our second, third, whatever you want to call it, final email of the day from Wells Lamont. Subject line, Furious 7. I must have lost my 6 notes, so I have to skip it. Well, you know. We tried.
Fair.
Sean, what are you going to do when you catch the guy that killed Han? Dom. Words haven't even been invented yet. Then he puts in stars Dom writing in his revenge journal about what he's going to do when he catches the guy who killed Han, which I think is pretty funny. I'm going to scrupulate Deckard Shaw and defossipate him. And then after that, I will von Frischerize him into Gorblivion. Ha ha ha. Again, my bad for this.
That's funny, and it was funny we were talking to Nico and Kevo about it, and they're just like, "What does that mean?" And like the writers just check out. They're like, "Oh, what can we say? What can we say?" We're like, "The words haven't
Words
been
ain't even
invented
been
yet."
invented yet.
You're like, "Okay."
Scrupulate, defossipate, Fortiorize, Gorblivion. You guys started to dislike Roman a little bit in 7 because he was clowning too much, but his leadership speech and the face he gives the army guy standing next to him always has me dying. I guess I'm goofy enough to appreciate his ridiculous and immature antics.
I like him. Roman's one of my favorite characters. But, like, there was a point in 8 when we were watching it last time that I was just like, buddy, come on, man. Like, just,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
just a little, like, I'm not, like, as anti-it as you, but, like, I was just like, just tone it down just a
Yeah, because I think
tad.
I think it was on 7 where you were like, I'm not, and I was like, finally, but like 7, I'm not. 8 is the one where I have a problem with him. 7, I'm not. I don't have a huge problem. It's just beginning that transition, but I still like 7 is like before he goes over the line. Like you can see him heading that direction. 8
Yeah.
is where like, oh boy, like Rome, like pump the brakes a
man.
little bit. Wow, I totally forgot. Brian literally speaks to the audience as he flies the car of the plane. Didn't think it could get any crazier, huh? Jay Lin is a master director.
He breaks the fourth wall. I think that he's supposed to be, like, he is talking, like, on the, like, walkie-talkies, but yeah, it does feel like he breaks the fourth wall and just
Of
stares
course.
right into your soul.
So happy for Brian when he hits the bad guy with a too slow as he falls down the elevator shaft and dies. The perfect payback and great wrap up of that crazy ass bus scene earlier in the movie,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which you had admitted was like it took you 7 times watching it to finally be like, oh yeah, I finally saw that scene.
Yeah, I did. I just don't remember that in the warehouse fight ever. Like now I
Too
do.
slow.
Yeah, yeah. But I never remembered it until there. I was like, oh yeah, this did exist. That's
Oh yeah.
right.
Right after Hobbs tells Shaw, "Get to digging, boy," is when you want to turn the movie off to keep from crying and going into deep depression from the ending song and parting ways. Yep. Because it goes sad. They think Dom is dead, right? And Letty has to be like, no,
Yes.
like, we got married and I'm not ready to die yet. Dominic Turner, like, that's
Yeah.
emotional.
What is? And then Brian's yelling the nonsense. He's like, don't die on me. Breathe. Just breathe.
And then they go to the, like, better get to digging, boy. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, oh, God, here, we got to say goodbye to Paul.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if they kept the same Fast family, but instead of Fast movies, they made all types of stuff. Westerns, love stories, sports movies,
Oh.
coming-of-age tales. How funny would it be? The team riding horses in the desert or forming a championship softball team, in parentheses, co-ed. That'd be a real branch out.
I want this so like American Horror Story style.
Yeah. So here's the would it be the same actors or the same characters? Because like that's the same actors but different characters. Most I mean sometimes they cross over, but like would it always be Tyrese or would it always be Tyrese as Roman?
I don't think Tyrese can exist without being Roman.
Yeah, I mean that's a bad example because that
Would like Michelle Rodriguez always be Letty? Well, I
that's
guess
also
she
a bad.
can.
They're all bad
Yeah.
examples. I think they're all like exactly their character, right? For better or worse.
Mia might have a little bit more agency at one point
We haven't
in
done the
one
Mia
of them.
lap yet. We'll do the Mia at some point.
But no, I think that they all have to be. I can imagine Tej not being as techy. He's the main basketball star or like softball player, right? Like I
Yeah,
could see him in a sports one for sure. That
yeah.
he's like the Jordan of the team.
Well, no, I mean the Jordan of the team is Bow Wow because he's like Mike.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. But no, I fuck. This is a great thought. Wells really hit the nail. I like that one. To imagine them as like in westerns,
Yeah,
that would be really good.
yeah,
That'd
man.
be really fun.
Okay, bro, I'll see you on the other side for 8, which I just purchased on eBay for $3, and it came today as I
Ooh,
finished 7. Perfect timing. I guess Rasputin,
it's
better to
COVID.
not go to in person when it's COVID out there. But yeah, deals all day on eBay.
Deals all day on eBay.
And that's all the emails for today. Family at cageclub.me if you want to write in. Thank you to Justin, even though we don't know what you said. Thank you to Jerry. Thank you to Wells for writing in.
Yes.
Family at cageclub.me. Joe, on the streets, any Fast and Furious news? 'Cause I got nothing. Nothing
I got
even remotely
nothing.
adjacent.
Nope, not even close.
Well, then let us tarry no further because we're talking about the Hobbs and Shaw deleted scenes, and we
It's a
knew there were
lot.
35 minutes, but we were like, I don't know if it's going to be like extended, if it's going to be like a 4 minute scene that's now a 5 minute scene. We have like 1 minute of new,
There's
but like
some of
it's
those.
some of that, but it's a lot of new stuff. Like I was
It
trying to
is.
do a little bit of mental math, and I feel like of these 35 minutes, there's probably 20 to 25 of completely new footage. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say closer to 15 because there's like a couple scenes that like overlap a lot, but
But it's
yeah,
a sizable amount, yeah.
20 feels right. It's more than 50%. Like for being extended scenes.
So first, though, let us talk about something I did not know existed, which
Same.
is the alternate opening, which is a 10-minute and 14-second, maybe a tiny bit of new footage, but is mostly just kind of restructuring this. And my overall thought of this, because this starts with Hobbs and Shaw bickering
In the thing, yes.
where they're basically interrogating Hattie, where Brixton, breaks into to get Hattie out, but
Like
they're
the
just
trailer.
bickering about why they hate each other, and then
Yeah.
it says 1 day earlier, and then it just kind of restructures the first 10 minutes of the movie. My big issue with this is that it severely undercuts, I think, how important Hattie is.
That's very true. I thought that it was just kind of confusing. They jump you in the middle, which is fine. We talk about things like that's like a trope that like just tell the fucking movie. But then it goes 1 day earlier, but at the same time, it's not actually 1 day earlier because these two other things aren't running concurrently. Like, Hattie can't be getting the virus while they're trying to find out who has the virus. It went like Hattie got the virus, then they try to find out.
This version of the intro muddies the water in that way a little bit, but also kind of clears things up, because I think what this movie does effectively, or does differently, they are interrogating about Etion. Like, Shaw literally says Etion way earlier.
I asked that to Rachel when I was watching. I was like, does he say the word Etion like 30 seconds into the movie? You know what I mean? Not 30 seconds.
No,
but
I
like,
don't think he says that until like I think Brixton shows up. We don't even know, but like I don't think they know like till maybe like 30 minutes in, or when we're
yes,
at ET headquarters. I think like
exactly.
it's deep in the movie.
That's what I thought too. Okay, cool. I'm glad that we're on the same page. Yes, cool.
It seems like what this is that it's all happening at the same time. That Etion is looking for this virus, and so these missions that we see where Hobbs goes to that club or whatever where they have the tattoo parlor, and Shaw goes to the club where he dangles the guy out the window. It feels like that is in response to Hattie, but you're right because it feels like the Hattie stuff is taking place at the same time, but chronologically, that should have come first, which you can kind of, brush away, but it's kind of confusing. But like the way the
Yes,
regular movie plays it out, Hattie does her
it
thing,
works
but then
perfect.
it's kind of, I think the regular movie there was a little unclear of like what they're going to interrogate, because it almost feels like these are separate missions, just showing them, what they're doing. That's when they get the call. That's when Locke shows up and the Rob Delaney character shows up and they're like, we need help with this thing. This version makes those missions part of the overall movie,
Yes,
but
yes.
like undercuts Hattie and puts it in a weird way. Whereas the movie is just like, I don't know why we're seeing this other than just like, this is what they
Showing them,
do.
which I don't think you need. They don't need we have these characters that are established, so I don't think that you need them to be doing this for this specific mission for it to work. That's why I like the real version that they went with, because I don't think that it really makes that much of a difference.
No, and I think the real version, by starting with Hattie and just different. I mean, a lot of the deleted scenes we've covered have either been like fully finished, like the Too Fast, Too Furious ones were like fully finished, just taken out of the movie. Other stuff
Yeah,
was like kind of temp score, like I think the Fast and Furious 4 ones were like, this isn't what it was supposed to be or whatever. These feel pretty finished, although there's one deleted scene we'll talk about where you see Brixton on a wire that they didn't CGI out, and there's different
exactly.
music,
Yep.
and so like
Yep.
I don't know if the music was final or if they were going to do different things or whatever, but like the music to all of this feels more muted than like the Time in a Bottle song, which I think is a cool way to intro. Overall, just not having Hattie be at the
The
start of the movie,
star.
because like
Yeah.
fans come to this knowing Hobbs and Shaw, but they're like, oh, who's like who is this? Like this is she's the main. Like I don't know who this is, but like the movie is telling us she's important by starting with her, and then
Yep.
she injects herself or whatever. But what I do like about the Hattie thing here is we get her running away, which I don't think we have in the real movie, and also just running across that bridge feels very Tom Cruise-ish in a Mission
Mm.
Impossible movie, and I'm just like, oh, my girl being like my guy, right? Like it's
Yep.
that kind of thing. But overall, not bad, just not as good.
And the score, you mentioned it, the soundtrack that they used for this felt way too James Bondy for me, and
Okay,
I think it's just temp music. Like you said, like this is just hold music. Okay, we want something here, but like we're not set on this yet. It very much sounded like a new age James Bond wanted. You know, like the keyboard type
sure. Yep.
situation. And I was like, that doesn't fit. It feels way too James Bond for me, and that's not what this movie is. Because we were just talking. Well, you'll hear we talked to Nico and Kevo, and it's to me it's way more of a buddy cop kind of movie than a James Bond movie. So
Right. Which especially because like the James Bond element is the Hattie stuff, and because this undercuts the Hattie stuff, it's
yeah.
like it's making it less James Bond, but that's more. I don't know. I don't know.
Finally, you know what we did this time? We've said this a million times. We've referenced it. You see The Rock, and he says, "I'm an ice cold can of whoop ass."
Yep.
Right? Shaw says, "I'm what you'd call a champagne problem." Did you know that this is like a real saying? Am I the only one that didn't know that?
No, I mean I had not heard it, but like it felt like to me I was like, oh, this must just be a thing that I don't know about, but I didn't know.
Okay, do you know what it is now?
I maybe missed it. I don't know. What is it?
It's when you have two choices, but both choices are good. Kind of like what we would say like a first world problem. No, not
Oh,
really. Both outcomes are good, and you just have to pick the better one that you want.
how does that apply to him?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. But like we looked because I was like, is this a real saying? And so like Rachel and I looked it up, and that's what the definition of it is.
Okay, because I thought they maybe explained because there's other lines like, you're going to tell me not because I'm the guy holding you at the window, you're going to tell me because I'm the guy willing to drop you. Like there's lines like that that are extended. I
Yes.
thought maybe he explained it more, but no, I don't know. It's weird.
Wish we had Andy on speed dial because we could ask him, our resident British colloquialism expert, that if this is like a more common phrase that we just don't hear here and it would play better in an
Sure.
international market. But like it's something that like it's a phrase that I never heard before.
Okay. Yeah, no, neither did I.
He delivers it like it's something that existed. Like I didn't make this up. But also I'm like, I don't know what that means. So yes, there you go. And if you didn't know either, and I mean like listeners, if you didn't know either, then now you know. Now you know.
Maybe. I
Maybe.
don't know. Okay, so that was the 10-minute scene. That was not part of the 35 minutes. There's essentially 45 minutes of stuff. So there are
Yes.
probably 20 different scenes. I don't have an exact count, but there's a lot. So the first one, Brixton opens case and grenade explodes. And my first
Yes.
reaction to this is, oh, that's awesome. Like I just loved because like in the movie,
I couldn't distinguish what was different about this because he winds up behind the truck in the movie, but I
yeah,
didn't know what the like I don't remember the explosion, but I don't know. It's just the explosion.
so in the movie, she injects herself and then runs away, and he goes back and
Yes.
lifts the case up and just says viral sample dispensed or whatever. But in this
Yes.
one, it's the same thing, but she left a grenade in there that was being held down by the top of the lid, so that when he lifted the lid, the thing exploded, thinking she was going to kill him. That's when he says, "Really." And then he says it in a way that almost sounds like Hattie, and I had put on subtitles for this because does he know her? Like, there's no reason that he would know
No.
her, but he
Exactly.
says really in a way, Idris, Brixton, whatever you want to call him, says really in a way that sounds like Hattie, and I was like, does he? And no, it's just really. But then he gets blown up. He gets
Yeah.
blown back at least because he doesn't take damage. And he just says nice, nice. Yeah, it's the same thing, but she left a grenade as a gift for him to buy herself more time or maybe to kill the guy or whatever. But minor thing, but I was just like, that's a very cool, smart, Hattie is a badass.
It is, and I do like that part of it. The ingenuity to show her doing something very clever like that is cool.
Yep.
Why they cut this one, it didn't really make a difference to me. I don't get it. I guess because it kind of sells. I mean, but you already like I was thinking, that they probably cut it because it sells Brixton being invincible too early. But like he stops a bullet with his hand right before that. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also the micro editing of like if we can save 12 seconds here, we're going to save 12 seconds here. Like we don't
okay.
because we later. I don't know. I don't know because like again, long movie could have been long. I don't know, but I think that's maybe it. Who knows? You don't need it, but it's also cool.
There's some of these scenes that we'll get to that are like I'm like, oh, I see why they cut this, and then there's some that I'm like, oh, I see why they trimmed time here. This one specifically, I'm like, why not leave in an extra explosion? Like, what's that hurt? You know?
Okay, so I just counted. There's 22 scenes that span 35 minutes. And 12 of those 22 are extended scenes. So, like, when I was looking at the list, I was like, oh, this is kind of like. I was hoping, I think, for more just fully deleted scenes than the
Yes,
extended
yes.
ones, but I
Yep.
feel like the extended ones were almost where we got better stuff on average. And we'll go through. But the first one, the reason I bring that now is the first extended scene is extended Hobbs and Sam in the pancake house. And
Yes.
first takeaway here, not a relative, but Hobbs mentions because he's looking at her family tree and says, Aunt Lisa could be here. She's like, Dad has to be a family member. Like, she has to be, and then Aunt Lisa's not related. But I'm like, who's Aunt Lisa?
I think that that's the woman we see later. That's kind of like her babysitter. Remember, because he calls and
Oh,
he's
maybe. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think that they're just saying like this is his friend that sometimes takes care of her that she calls Aunt Lisa.
Gotcha.
Because I think he even mentions it in the non extended version. He like says something about Aunt Lisa. We kind of know it's like inferred that she's not her real aunt,
Right.
and this
Yeah.
kind of just clears that up.
But then we have Hobbs with the ultimate, like,
Oh
mixed
God.
metaphor of, like, trying to explain why they don't go back to Samoa, where it's like, strong winds blow and branches fall off, and you gotta get back on that horse and just drive off and rebuild that house. And Sam's like, Dad, what the hell are you like? What are you talking about? And he just like doesn't know what to say, which I think is funny and cute, but like not needed, but just a nice character moment.
Yes, and I would like to. I'm not as deep into Samoan culture or not to know if that's supposed to be a specific Samoan joke
I
or
think it's
just
just he's unsure of what to say. Like he doesn't. I don't think he
okay.
wants to explain to his daughter that like, hey, my dad ran a gang
Yes.
and like I put my dad in prison and I'm here because my family excommunicated me.
No, that part I definitely get, but I mean, like, you know how every language and culture has their own, like, things. I want to know if he's actually using Samoan, like, idioms
Maybe.
and he's combining all of them, or if you know what I mean? This is what I would, like, I would like a nice deep dive into the referencing of that.
I would guess not, but also maybe. I think it's just supposed to be like just all like
Word vomit.
pick yourself up by the bootstraps and dust yourself off and just like
Yes,
things to like move on or whatever. Like, metaphors about moving on or whatever.
exactly. Okay.
But we get, more importantly, a very important line from Sam saying to Hobbs, I just worry about you. You won't talk about your family, and Mom's been gone for a long time. I don't want you to be alone. I was like, oh, like beautiful sentiment, but also talking about Mom there. She could be Mom, they cannot be married, but we don't, like, that's the first, I think, reference to, like, Mom being ever in the picture.
Her saying that she doesn't want him to be alone doesn't imply that they weren't together.
Right. And then Hobbs compliments her beautiful hair, which is, that girl's
Nice.
hair is on point, which is very nice.
Very, very cute, very sweet.
What I thought was a reference to a different thing, but it's not. It's just a reference to a joke about a thing. But, that's when they get interrupted by the food. All the food comes, and she says, cheat day, cheat day. Then in the movie, they move on. But Hobbs says, you ain't cheating if you ain't eating. And
Yes.
there's a joke on Comedy Bang Bang where I think it's Scott Aukerman's like impression of Bill Clinton is him just saying "eatin' ain't cheatin'," which I was like, did he ever actually say that? And I don't think he ever did. But like I was like, is this a joke about Bill Clinton? It's not. But I was just like, oh, that's weird. Obviously we know that in real life The Rock loves his cheat days, and that's what they're
Yes.
kind of referencing
Yeah.
here. But you ain't cheating if you ain't eating. I was like, is this sexual? No, it's not. I'm just my Comedy Bang Bang brain just went there.
Yeah, no, that's a good connection. I like it. Weird that you got from there to Bill Clinton.
Eating ain't cheating. Any other thoughts about this before a very, very brief extended scene in the same restaurant?
She says something to him, and he's like, I'm enough of a family for both of us or something. And she's like, yeah, you're a whole lot. And it's just like another shot at The Rock being monstrous.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty fun. It gave me a little chuckle, so.
Yeah. The next one is in the same scene as the extended pancake house with Locke, and it's just him saying, you must be wondering why I called me here. Sam's just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's just that part, right? Rachel was like, oh, it's the necklace part. And I was like, no, he has the necklace in the movie. So it's
Yeah.
just him saying, you must
Why
wonder
why I called me here. It's a funny
Yeah.
little throwaway line, but just, Hobbs doesn't care, and Sam's like, what are you talking about? Like, you make no sense.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Then we have extended Hobbs and Shaw face off, and this is kind of a throwback to the alternate intro, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
because we have those two guys, the techs in the other room. They're like, "What happened?" Because the big guy started giving the little guy, or the British guy, orders. The British guy started saying things, which I thought was just a very like. Then he opened his mouth and just made the other guy angry, which I think is a very perfect summation of their relationship.
This is like one of those ones that I was like, oh, I see why they cut this for time. Like
Yep.
those characters don't need lines, right? Like that made sense, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm glad they added it. Like you can watch it, but at the same time, this one was like, okay, I get it.
And they might have this in the finished movie. I don't think so because I think it's new. Because like I've seen this movie now 6 times in the last like year. Like it's been a year and a half or whatever.
Yeah,
Like I've
a
seen this
ton.
more often than anything else. So I think I have a pretty good sense of what's in and what's not, but I don't think this made the cut. But Shaw says, "It's your face, your big stupid face. Looking at it makes me feel like God is projectile vomiting right into my eyes," which is just such a weird, specific insult that I love that I don't
Yeah,
think made the final movie, but
it feels familiar. Maybe it was like in the trailer, but
maybe
not
it's in
in
the
the
movie. I don't
movie.
know, but maybe I just didn't hear it before. But man, it's a good line.
Yeah, it is. It is. I like it.
Any other thoughts about that one or no? That's another relatively short one.
No, that's a relatively short one. They only add a little bit. Most of it's replaying the you're an asshole scene.
Yep.
So
So then we have extended Shaw tracks Hattie, and this is when she is going to the hotel to get changed before Hobbs confronts her and
yes.
arrests her, and this is when he's going to her house.
Is at her house. I was thinking about this when I was watching it this time. We see his house in the beginning, and although it's kind of similar, it's definitely not his house, right? It's
No, I think
hers.
it's her house. I think it's just upscale British living.
Yeah, like they both live in like super modern
Yeah,
style. But yes, that okay, that makes sense. And because he also is like he seems like he's trying to figure out where stuff is,
right.
but he also kind of intuitively knows. So I think that that's just saying that like he's still her brother,
Yep.
and like he would do the same type of things, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
So in the in-vehicle display, I don't know if you noticed this, but before he
yes,
changed to the camera,
yep,
the thing on the screen says variable drift control, and I was like, ooh. And there's
I
also
noticed it.
track telemetry, which I think is spelled wrong, or maybe just a British variant, and garage door opener. And he's just using it to spy on the guys who are like watching her house.
I definitely noticed the variable drift control because I wrote that down too.
And then there's a scene that's kind of, or a moment that's kind of reminiscent of both a deleted scene in Fast Five, and I think there's another maybe deleted
Yep,
scene or something, but
yep,
it's a confrontation with a car. You think that Shaw almost gets run over. It's like, which feels out of character for him, and the taxi cab just like, the cabbie, like, it gets
yep.
furious at him. But he, like, sticky bombs, essentially, the taxi that,
Mm-hmm.
like, crashes into the guy's van, so they get distracted and they run out, and then he's able to sneak in, which I thought was very smart and very Shaw. But, like, at the beginning, I'm like, there's no way that he almost got run over, but we saw,
Same.
Hobbs, like, slap that ass, basically, to, like, get the car to drive faster in Rio, and I was like, oh, it's, a throwback there.
I thought so too, and it's funny that both of these scenes were cut.
Yeah.
Like it's essentially like the same type of play with both of them doing it. They both get cut. So
It's like
yeah,
we don't need to show character versus car because they're supposed to be on the same team.
exactly. Yeah.
My only other note about this, I thought it was kind of cute that Hattie sort of stumbles in heels because it's like she's not comfortable being dressy. She's just more like
Yes.
practical and tactical and whatever. But she, dresses in that red dress with the brown wig or whatever and stumbles going out. And I thought that was like, oh, okay, yeah, pretty cool.
Very
Nice
a
little character
la
moment.
Letty, right? Like we see.
Yeah. The next scene, speaking of Hattie,
Oh God.
Hobbs gets handsy
Oh God.
with Hattie.
This is so. I'm so happy that they cut this. They should have left it off the deleted scenes too.
So this is the fight between Hobbs and Hattie, and he
Which is
tears her
very
dress
slow
sleeve
motion.
off. Yep.
They knew pretty much immediately that this scene should get cut.
So he like rips her sleeve dress or dress sleeve off, and she like spins away, and then he's like basically like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And he puts his hands up to apologize, and she spins right back into him, so that his hands are just right over her breasts, and he
He
says,
boob honks her.
and this is a quote, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to touch your boobs." So if you ever wanted to hear The Rock say, "I didn't want to touch your boobs,"
Yep.
check out the deleted scenes. And then she kicks a paint can into him and the fight continues and the scene ends. But okay, because I saw the title and I was like, please no, please no.
I know. I did the same exact thing. And what happened was somehow worse. Who ever thought that this was an okay idea?
Because like the crazy thing to me, and I would assume that this is true of the scene too, is that like whenever there's a movie with a sex scene, which by and large are not in, I mean the first one where, Mia wakes up sort of topless in bed
But
or
yes,
whatever.
but not a sex scene.
But
Yeah.
not really. But like whenever there's scenes that are like that, the production hires somebody called an intimacy coordinator, and they are on there to talk to every actor in the scene and be like, what are you comfortable with, what are you not comfortable with, and they like
Right.
kind of act as a
Yes.
negotiator between like she doesn't want you to touch here, so why don't you touch here? He doesn't want you to touch here, so why don't you do this or whatever, and like there's
Yep.
making sure that like in a sex scene where there needs to be,
It's
everybody
not
needs to be
porn.
trusting, everybody feels okay, right? I would imagine they had to have someone here like, how do we have him cup her boobs in a way that is respectful and okay? But it's just like,
Never.
what
Don't do
weird.
that. It's never respectful and okay.
I mean, it's a comic element, but it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's fart jokes essentially. Like, don't do this. It's yeah.
The next scene is similar, kind of, and I was wondering if this was going to be that same fight scene. Like, I wonder if it was a metaphor or not, and it's not. Extended Hobbs and Hattie Tango. This is the CIA black site.
When he makes the tango reference, which I'm not thrilled about in the film itself to begin with.
But this version I liked so much more because like it's
Really?
wild. Yeah, because he plays the actual music. Because like in the movies, like
Yes.
we're talking about tango, like you don't hear anything. It's just like it
You're
takes
just
two to tango.
referencing tango.
But
Yeah.
in this, he's got like an iPod or something, and he plays a tango song. It feels very romantic thanks to that, and he gives her tea, and she drinks the tea. She's like, "Oh, shockingly civilized." And they're staring lovingly, like, and it's kind of maybe speeding that relationship up, but like it's like, oh no, they're both into each other because they're both beautiful, and how would you not be? But then as soon as she puts the cup down, he's like, okay, cool, test that for ballistics, which is very like he's still by the book. But like I was like, oh no, I love this. I love this version because it's like romantic in a way that the movie kind of speeds through.
You read it as very romantic. I read it as very comical because there's like a lot of long slurping, and I read it as like two children having like a staring
Oh, I,
contest.
I wrote down I thought it was cute and funny that she's trying to drink her entire cup of hot tea in like in one big sip, but like she's not. And
Yeah.
I still loved it. I still loved it. I think this is one of my favorite scenes that got cut just because there's more emotion here than just like, hey, you're not playing like you gotta play ball with me, otherwise you're gonna be in trouble. Like this just feels.
I think that the tango music plays really well. I think that that was my favorite part of this one for me. Without the tango music, the tango metaphor works a lot less.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I'm like, oh, they cut that, and I don't know why because it works well. So like seeing it with it, I'm like, yeah, why don't you still do that? So
Don't know.
I think maybe because like the music when you're editing it, the music would have been chopped.
But like they're not in when they're filming it, they're not listening to the music in the moment. That's all added in post. So
Yeah,
you can
so
lay it in.
I
I don't
don't
know.
get it.
I don't
I
know.
was trying to give them an out, but I don't think I can.
No, it's just a. I think it's a bad decision. Like you can cut. Like I don't mind if you cut the like drink off. Like that's fine. But I think having the music there.
Yep.
But who knows? I don't know. Next scene, extended car chase dialogue. This is when they're three wide in the McLaren, and this is just kind of like more Hobbs saying you should be grateful, and Shaw being like, "Stop it," basically.
Yeah, and you get Hattie being like, I don't want a big brother lecture. They're just kind of grumbling back and forth. I think that the scene overall, like, and we get the chase with it too. I think the scene overall kind of plays better with them not talking or talking less.
Like at a certain point in the movie, it's like how many times can they argue? Like we get it. Like
Yeah,
they hate each other.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Perfect. Yep.
And there's like, there's fun lines sort of, but not really. Like nothing that sticks out, nothing that's super memorable. So it's like, yeah, okay, cool, good.
Yep.
This one is another one of my favorites, passport check alternate. So this is when he takes the photos of them like before they go, the Mike Oxmall thing, and
Mm-hmm.
they have some like
Superlatives
text
is
on
what I call
screen and
them.
everything, yeah. And they're prepping in the underground lair, and Michael Oxmall, gym teacher, philatelist, and he's like, "What is that?" And Statham goes, "Stamp collector." Like it's like he's some like
Yes.
uncultured swine for not knowing the fancy word for stamp collecting.
I really like the idea that they put it up as kind of like the Mick Jagger, right? But
Yeah,
like I like that, and I think that you can tastefully do that a couple times in a movie, and it would play well here. But I think that why they took it away is because when you see the name written, you get the joke, the punchline before it happens, right?
yeah, because they save it because they say Michael Oxmall, and it's just like you don't
Yes.
hear it there. And then when they get to the TSA or whatever, if you could say your name back to me, please. If you just say Mike Oxmall, he just like says it like very slowly, just like Mike Ox, and then it kind of slurs like Mall,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he gets taken away. But it's funny. I liked it, but
It hits better with a one punch joke, just like
yep.
boom boom.
But I like that there were more backstories that like Statham had like created like three-dimensional characters for these.
Yes.
That like The Rock is not just a guy who says my cock small, but it's also like he's a gym teacher and a stamp collector, just like this dork, like unsuccessful. You know what I mean? So
I agree too. The stamp collector part I really liked, and I was like, damn, I wish I would have kept that in. Because he even does the like, I'm a ski instructor and like
yep,
whatever. Like
yep.
they do that part. So
This next one is one that even if we were guessing what would be extended or deleted or alternate, like this is a
yes,
first round draft pick. Like this is like there's no way they have that Kevin Hart scene and you don't have like 20 minutes of it. It's extended Dinkley on the plane. And one of my
Yes.
favorite things off the bat is just him spelling his name Dinkle. Just like, yeah, like
Yeah.
you heard me right. I'm Dinkley.
Yeah, because they do like the that's a weird name type situation, like right off the jump, and he's like, yes, that's what it is.
And what I also thought was cool, like this, I mean, this is probably like 4 or 5 minutes of the 35, and I'm imagining there's probably that they probably shot this for like 20 minutes or half an hour, just like
Yeah.
just riff, just do whatever you want to do. But what I thought was really cool, like a cut, is they both flag him. They're like, "How did you know I was an air marshal?" And they're like, "Oh, look, single, riding alone, aisle seat, whatever, blah blah blah." But then
Yeah.
he turns it on them. He's like, "Thick neck, head's been on a swivel since we got on the plane. You're a
No, that part's in
lawman."
it.
The Mr. Armani pants?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Are you
yeah.
sure?
Yep, 100%. Because he says, "What do you do? Like into hot yoga, Pilates, or something?" I remember that from the
No, no,
movie
no.
for
That
sure.
that part is. I don't think it's this. Maybe
They cut like little tiny things that he says.
I don't remember Mr. Armani pants. Maybe it is, but I remember the clanging and banging and like talking about how much the Rock lifts and stuff like, and the Pilates and the hot yoga and stuff. I don't think the Mr. Armani. Maybe it is, but if anything else, it's extended there in a way that just shows it gives Dinkley more credence. Like it shows that he's better at his job. I think in this extended version.
Yeah, they take very like they left a lot of stuff in. They actually edited this one really well. That it comes down to they just took like all the best pieces and left them in.
They did cut out an entire thing about his JSOC friends or whatever, like all of the other what do they call
Oh
it,
my
the
god.
Wolf Pack or the Warriors or
The
whatever,
warlocks,
Warriors.
the warlocks.
About the sandwich, and it's like then
He's
Dinkley
like,
eats the sandwich. Like it's just like that
it's
guy
so
gets a
good.
sandwich and like Adam, you want the sandwich? No, I don't want the sandwich. So he gives it to Paul, and Paul doesn't want the sandwich because Paul's on a diet or whatever. And so then Paul gives it, and then Dinkley eats the sandwich. It's like what is going on?
I don't know, but they at the end of that part, they're like they both say something, and I think it was actually like a cue for them to they're like shut up, like we did this bit enough. Like they both say like move on or something. Yeah, they say move on or something, and it sounded like The Rock and Jason Statham were both like, okay, the end of that bit, just stop, can
Yeah.
like do a different one, and that's what cracked me up about it too.
They also cut a thing that I think I don't want to say important, but Dinkley, even in the movie, is like, I can get whatever you want. Like, he's the one that gets them the
Mm-hmm.
Samoa, whatever. So, like, can you get this missile? Can you get that missile? Like, even easier, whatever. And at the end, they're like, they go through like 6 or 8
Mm-hmm.
things. They're like, how about a C-17 viral extraction machine? He's just like, uh, oh, I gotta take a shit. He's like, we must have just cracked 30,000 feet. It's like, that's his opt out, but like, for this man who can get anything, the one thing they need the most in the world, he can't get. So I think it's kind of important. Like, obviously, you cut it out because like it's a poop joke, but like, it kind of makes sense for this guy who says and seems to fulfill he can get anything. They don't need to go to Samoa if they have this machine, right? So
Are they on their way to Samoa here?
no, but like eventually they're gonna need to get to Samoa.
Because what is the plane scene? Where does it take place in the movie? Is it when they're going to find the guy, or did they already talk to the doctor about the viral extraction machine?
I think they talk to the doctor and they're going to get the machine.
Okay, so then it does play well. I thought that they cut it out because they're like, okay, we know that we're going to go get it after, or like they changed up a couple the way something played out. It just didn't make sense. But I think it happens that they like talk to the doctor, they get on the plane to go get the machine, and then they go to Samoa
Because
afterwards.
they need the terminology, and so they have had already talked to the
Yes.
doctor, and he's like, you gotta
Yes.
go here. They have the machine here, so they go there, and then they're like, okay, the machine's broken now. Oh, my brother's the best mechanic in the world. Like, he can go fix it. We have to get to
Yes.
Samoa somehow. Then they call Dinkley. But yeah, like I thought this was fun. Just Kevin Hart being Kevin Hart.
I love it because I like Kevin Hart, and I think that this would be really fun to be on set for. Just because like I would love to hear like I love the comedic outtakes. I love the like Will Ferrell ones too. So it's fun to see them like at their craft where they're just like trying to get people to laugh and break, right? So
It's also
that's
just very funny that they didn't finish the sound mix here because, like, other than them talking, there's no background noise. Like, they didn't layer in plane sounds, and so like they're all talking seemingly very loud on a otherwise silent plane about like
at
how
night.
they're all secret agents and spies and like
Yeah.
viral extraction. But that would have been if they left this in as it is, they would have changed that a little bit. But
Yeah.
they're not whispering; they're like shouting about how like she's infected by a virus and I'm a spy and he's a lawman and you're an air marshal, right? Like yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then we have a very, very short scene, maximum weight these parachutes hold that just, the Rock weighs more than, or Hobbs weighs more than the parachutes allow, but Jason Statham good at maths.
Do you think The Rock actually weighs 265? I
Yeah.
think that's low.
He
He's
went up
so
to
big.
285, I think, because he's talked about his weight because he got bigger for a thing. What was he getting bigger for? Maybe Black Adam, but he was 265, I think, and then he like put on like 20 more pounds of muscle. Like 265 is in that ballpark.
Okay, but he's so big. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. Like he's such like a like his frame is so big. Like I'm not judging him based on his weight, but just like he's so much muscle and he's so tall and like brawn. 265 even seems low for me. I'm like he got to be like 285.
no, I think
Like
yeah, he's like no, he's I mean he's 265 by choice, right? Like he's just like
yeah.
he's not just sitting around eating donuts and drinking beer. He's like I'm going to hit the gym until. But he recently, like in the last year, I think we even talked about it on here very briefly, like on the streets or whatever. But he got up to 285 for some role. Like he got even bigger. The next one, Dinkley in his office alternate. So in the movie, his office is just the bathroom, which is funny. But here he actually has an office, which is like, oh.
And he has a Warlock sticker on the back there, which I noticed,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was pretty cool.
And he's like, you got a third squatty out here that can deliver, and talking about clanging and banging 3:45 a.m.
Dude,
leg day.
that was my favorite part. That actually really got me to laugh. He was like 3:45 a.m. leg day. You know we don't skip leg day. And The Rock's just like stop.
What I loved about this was that he's on speakerphone. There, Hobbs and Shaw in the front talking to him. It's just such nonsense that like they cut to Hattie in the back. She's just like smiling from the back seat, just like basically just like boys, like what do you like what these idiots like I'm about to die. Like these are the hopes to save the world. Like I know they're
Yeah.
qualified, but like what is even going on right now? Like just come on, guys. But like just also loving it, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart ends the scene. He's like, Carol, remember that big thing I told you I was working on? Well, it just happened. I quit. So I don't know who Carol is. Maybe his assistant or his boss or something. But
It maybe his like girlfriend or something. It seemed like it's almost like, but it's a real office, like in a place. But yeah,
then in that same scene for Hobbs and Shaw, it's a Samoa truck with a radio, and this they're just battling because on the subtitles it says jovial instrumental music plays on radio. It just seems like some Samoan.
island music, like Samoan island music.
Yeah.
Like you'd imagine like Hawaiian music, but Samoan music.
And Shaw turns it off, and Hobbs turns it back on. We see Hattie again, maybe the same cut with her smiling, and then eventually Shaw pops the power button off so that you can't turn it on anymore.
Yeah, exactly. He just rips it straight off the fucking dash. Like, and that's again, you could definitely cut this.
Yep, it was just like extra stuff on the route to the Hobbs house, right? So
Yeah, if you need to save 35 seconds, this one's it.
this next one is another big one. It's extended Hobbs and Hattie talk family.
Okay.
And this, we get some of this in the movie, but we don't get all of this about, my dad used to say cars were like the tide, flow in, flow
That,
out, nobody
yes.
owns anything. And Hattie's
yep.
like, oh, your dad was a car thief. He's like, no, my dad stole everything. And then we get, this is about the dad with the gang and everything. And
We
whatever
don't get that. We don't get the part that he turned the dad in the movie, do we?
I don't think so, but I don't remember for sure.
We get that there was like he left because the dad was running like a gang with his brothers, but we didn't. I don't think we get the part where he specifically says that he turned his dad in and put him in jail, and
And that
that's why his brothers
he
mad
feels
at him.
remorse about it too. And Hattie says, "Or you protected your family, did the right thing." And he says, "I do it 1,000 times. My old man crossed a line he should never cross. But after I put him away, I left Samoa, never came back, and because of that, Jonah never forgave me."
That should stay in. Like that clears up a lot of shit that we had questions about.
And also, I feel like the fact that this was cut out means to me that the dad is not the voice. Because if the dad was the voice and like this evil, right, like this guy who wants vengeance on his son, they would have left this in.
I feel the other way around, that
You
they
think?
cut it out because it's more likely that the dad is the voice because they're not trying to bring attention to it if that's not the
Maybe.
direction they're going to
Maybe.
go story wise.
Maybe.
That's what I'm thinking.
But then Hattie ends up by saying, "One good thing came out of me jamming that thing into my hand. I got to bring you home, didn't I?" And just like, yeah. Because there's another scene later, what we'll get to, where Hattie and Deckard talk to each other and like kind of rekindle. Like this thing brought families together, which is a theme throughout the movie, but these sort of serve to underline that point a little bit more clearly.
Yes, and but I think that part gets cut out because it makes them too lovingly too soon. You know what I
Maybe.
mean? It's still like grave that like, she might die because of the virus and stuff like that, but they're like too canoodly too quickly. Like you need to get that scene where they're like drinking beers. Like we'll get to it. Yeah.
The next scene is Jonah, let me be clear. They're talking about their dad's old rum runner, talking about how the whole village now runs on sugarcane.
Yep. On ethanol.
Jonah just says that he's doing this to help Hattie and Shaw, but not Hobbs, and just like further, just like I'm helping you, but like we're not good.
Which again is cool that this is fine for me to cut because he's like We know Jonah's pissed at him. We've said
Yep.
this 50 times so far. So like Jonah being like, "I'm pissed at you," doesn't help anything. So just, yep, we got it. Cool.
Similar to the next one, My Land, My Plan. This is again, the ancestral history of Samoa or whatever. Shaw saying the island will provide. They're going back and forth and just saying, there's one thing I want to get off my chest, and like they're both saying
Yeah.
like they have something to say. And they do one of those like no fucking way where they both say at the same time. Shaw says, "Stay away from my sister," and Hobbs says, "You're still a real asshole." They're like, "Wait, what'd you say?" And it's like a different thing. Like they think that they're going to say the
Yes.
same thing, but no. Shaw says, "You haven't been on this island in 20 years. I'm as Samoan as you are." And I was like, that's not even remotely close, but
Yes.
okay.
And I also see why they cut this one because it's so reminiscent of the like he's an asshole at the same time.
Yeah.
They've done this joke before, and they like the third time I'd have been like, okay, come on, we're good. I do like that they mix it up, and he's like, yeah, like stay away from my sister. He's like, you still on the sister thing, and he's like, you're an asshole. Like yeah, like whatever. Yes, this is fine being cut for me too.
There is one good line that after he says, "I'm as Samoan as you are," Hobbs says, "You've got a lot of class and it's all low," which I thought was a pretty cool, pretty nice line.
Yeah, that is good.
Then we have extended Hobbs and Hattie at sunset, which is where Hattie is like kind of playing with her pin
This is
necklace.
great. This was probably my favorite one.
This is a thing that I ask you about at the end of this episode because I was like, is that something you're like, it just, Deckard gave it to her, but like we get the meaning behind that. Like she explains
Yes.
the meaning
Yep.
of the gift because like that's what I was asking. Like without knowing this was coming, I was like, we need to know like what this is because like we know the meaning of the chain, right? Of the necklace of Dom's cross. But here
Yes.
it's like it's clearly so meaningful to her, but it feels like there's more to the story, and that's what we get here.
And that's exactly what we get. And why they cut this one doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this is great. And because we have the history of necklaces in this franchise.
Yeah. And also another thing that gets cut here is another thing that we loved from the first movie that got cut. We get one character doing an impression of another character. Do you remember in the first movie when Mia and Brian go out to the car and Mia
And
does
she
an
does
impression
Dom?
of Dom, which is like,
Yeah.
oh my god. And then here both Hobbs and Hattie do an impression of Deck.
So he gave me this as a reminder to put the pin back in. Take a peek at it. Don't explode.
Take a beat, Hattie. Yeah, no, I could hear him saying that.
Hattie says it was a present from Deck, believe it or not, he was always the cool-headed one. I would rush into things recklessly. He gave this to me as a reminder to put the pin back in, and then she talks about how she wishes that that she didn't rush to judgment, that she shouldn't
Yes.
have believed Brixton, because like she should have just trusted her brother, that her brother couldn't have turned evil. But just, it's the Shaw impressions by Hattie and Hobbs. I'm just like, it's so wonderful.
It is. It is good. And but I was really hung up on how awesome the necklace was, and like it makes so much more sense of like why they chose it, what it means, what the necklace is, all of these kinds of things. I'm like, okay, cool. Whew, much better. Like it
Yeah.
calmed my brain. That's cool. Why did it get taken out? Why did it get taken out? I don't know. I guess that they maybe aren't going to go through with like more necklace things. Like this isn't going to be a running theme in these.
Unfortunate. But this might be like overall for us like the best scene of the bunch.
I think so too. Yep, that's what I was saying. This was definitely my favorite one.
Next is extended Hobbs and Jonah talk, and this is them just making amends. I don't know what Aiga, because it's also apostrophes. Aina. It's the subtitle says Aiga. It says Aina, but it's Aiga. I don't know. And it's like also apostrophe, so I don't know what that's short for. Maybe family, because he's like, the fact is I left you and I left our Aina. So family, maybe.
I was thinking our island, like
Maybe?
like our house, maybe
Very
type
possible.
situation. But I'm not sure. Yeah,
And then just they just say I love you, Uso, and then if we both survive this, let's make sure that we don't wait 25 years.
exactly. Yeah, which again, cut it. Totally fine. I mean, it's cute. I'm glad that they're together. But if you need time, there you go.
Yep.
This is a good one.
Extended Shaw and Hattie talk, and this is what I was saying before, I think. This is them making amends, right? Talking about how to protect her, the machine's doing its thing.
Is any of this scene in the movie? I feel like none of this is in the movie.
I don't think so. Because he's like, hey, I've done things I'm not proud of, things I have to make amends for, all thanks to what that bastard put me through. But right now, the most important thing is me getting my little sister home safely. And then she says, I want to get to know my big brother again.
But she also like does this weird thing where she like looks at her watch and she's like, I got like 22 minutes left and there's 21 minutes left to extract. And then like 7 minutes later after the like dance fight, she like looks at the back of her backpack and it says 21 minutes left. And
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's probably why they cut some of this.
Yeah, it's like, because there's a close-up of essentially like an Apple Watch with like a 22-minute countdown timer. And then you're right, like another point, like they're in the middle of the fight. They're like, cool.
7
21
minutes
to extract
later.
and 20, yeah, okay, it can't both be 22 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like they at least needed to cut the watch part out, and I think they were like, oh, okay, well, while we're here, to like trim. So
Yep. Extended battle.
it's pretty cool. You got an extended version of the dance too.
Yeah, the Siva Tau.
The Siva Tau, yes.
The guys, like, what I love is that when Hattie pushes the button, all the guns go offline, we see everybody happy, and, like, there's the big dude, like, when in the chase where they have, like, all the cars, like, linking as they're, Hobbs has the chain to the helicopter, and they're trying to keep the helicopter reined in or whatever, and they're like, we need a little bit more weight, and there's, like, that big Samoan dude who, like, comes in his truck and hitches up, like, making a little bit of a fat joke there or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
he is jumping up and down, like, laughing with glee about, like, I can't wait to go into battle. Like, they're just so excited to, like, bash these dudes with sticks and clubs and stuff. That, like,
Yep.
it's great.
Watching it like this, I was like, wow, this fight scene is very well choreographed. We talk about the guy from John Wick.
Yep, director David Leitch. Yep.
With more of this, it's even like more dancey and very well shot. But the highlight for me was definitely like the extended dance part. And I was like, it's kind of sad that some of that had to go, but it did feel like it ran a little long in this one. So I see it. I could take it either way. I prefer the longer version, but the movie is 2.5 hours long. So
The one fight thing that I really liked was that Hattie puts a tire around a dude and then Deckard hits him with a sledgehammer. What I thought was,
yes,
we've never seen a tire used as a weapon, I don't think.
a motor. We've definitely seen a motor, wrenches,
Yep.
gnaws.
But
like,
a tire itself, beautiful.
Exactly.
The next one is Cliffside Walk, and this seems like an alternate ending to the final scene before the credits, or like when the credits
Yep.
start, because it's like that weird, like, you're my mini-me, where there's like the helicopter shot or the drone shot, like pulling away. It's like, this is how the movie ends? It's still a weird ending, but there's more here. But there's a very cool thing where Shaw's saying, at least I have friends, and then Hobbs says, I don't have,
Yep.
you're right, I don't have many friends at all. The ones I do have, like you, I'm grateful to have, and I thank you. And they shake hands. And then they go into the sidekick stuff. But there's like that tender moment where it's like, actually, like, like, I can joke with you, but like, your friendship means something to me.
Which is lost in the end of the real movie. And Nico and Kevin, like, you'll hear, like, when we talk about it, at the end, they're just like, why are they still bickering? Like, you came together. Like, we definitely need the we're friends part.
We are your friends?
We are your friends. You'll never be alone again. Come on. We need this to tie it up, and I feel like that makes the ending a little bit better. So like, why did they cut this friendship part out of it? This is also shot from a different perspective. They're all kind of just like stopped on the side of the mountain, and it's like facing them. I get the reversal because we hear Shaw be like, no, the big doofy one's always the sidekick, and like, look at Chewbacca and stuff like that. That can all go, but like, leave the whole you don't have any friends. Yeah, I don't have many friends, but you shake hands. Like, that we need.
Yeah, I think it's something that the movie kind of implies that they have gotten over, like when they learn to work together to take down Brixton, that they are good now, but we don't actually explicitly see it, and I don't know that we need it, but I think it's also nice to have and be like a kind of a positive, because you can still end on the joke about like, Batman has Robin, and he has Mini-Me.
Exactly,
right?
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
What I also like about this is that they have, which I think is cut from the thing, Hobbs says that the tiny little ones are always the sidekick, and then Shaw says the big fat stupid oaf is always a sidekick, which I thought was, kind of enhanced, because like at the end it's just like, oh yeah, famous dynamic duos, cool. And I think the movie also knows that doesn't really work, because like as that's happening, the credits are starting, right? It's just like, you don't have to pay attention to this.
Yeah, and I think that it would play better. You could even leave the runoff going if it was like, we established that they're friends, but then they still have banter.
Yeah.
I think that the friends part makes it so that the banter works better. They're like, okay, look, we're seriously friends though. And they're like, cool. And then like, but you're an asshole. And like, you're like, okay, cool, that's fine.
And I wonder if there's another reason that they maybe cut this, because she's right, because she is the one that, like, these two guys are being childish, but it also kind of comes across Hattie sort of naggy at the end here, which you don't want to do, where she's like, as much as I'd love to stand here and listen to you argue, shall we go home? And they're like, yeah, let's go. And then the movie ends or whatever, right? But like, you kind of don't want like the harpy woman just being like, boys, stop having fun. Like, I want to go home. Like, it doesn't come across like that, but it could. And so.
Yep, that's fair.
And then the final scene.
One.
Hobbs and Locke phone call.
This is an extended scene of the credit scene.
Yes.
A different take of a credit scene, like a deleted scene. Wow, I really didn't think we needed another one of these or more of these, Rachel, so.
It's crazy. And so Locke gets a Locke calls Hobbs. He's like, I got a pretty scary flash drive. There's something scary in here. It's in space. A killing
And I was
star.
like, oh, like when he said that, I was like, oh shit, what is it? Like, are we like? I thought they were gonna go for a Fast and Furious in space joke.
I thought I didn't know if this was setting up a Hobbs and Shaw 2 that they didn't want to like that they were like let's not get ahead of ourselves, but like then very quickly like Hobbs picks up on it I think before I did. He's like Locke calls it a killing star.
No, I
And
got
then
it as
Hobbs
soon as he
says
said this.
kill
Yeah.
star, and then they're like, oh, there's like a Z-wing fighter, and you get in the belly. There's a weakness. You get in the belly of the killing star.
It has a
And then
laser.
It's
It
very
can
like it's
blow
very
up
clear that they're
planets.
talking about Star Wars. Hobbs then ends it by saying, "Do you think you saw it on that flash drive where you shot in the brain?" Which is a very weird kind of be like, "Are you an idiot?" But like Locke just wanted to talk to his buddy.
Honestly, they should have cut this one in instead of the fucking second Game of Thrones one. Because
Yeah.
it's like the same vibe of joke, but this will last way better. And they did it twice, and I remember how like we were in the theaters like, what the fuck, man? Like,
Yep.
stop. And then this is like so much better. It's like Star Wars, like it's you know what I mean? Like it has the same end goal because it's something so timeless. It doesn't date it, right?
Yeah.
This one should have stayed. They should have cut the fucking Game of Thrones one.
But that's it. There's the 22 scenes, 35
That's a
minutes
lot.
plus the intro. Pound for pound, the first movie still is the best because the first movie there's so much character stuff there that we're like, how is
Yep.
how? But there's some duds in there, like Jesse, like I gotta pee, I'll be right back. It's like what, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Both in volume and quality, like this is at least the second best, if not the best deleted scene. I think
agree.
like this is just if you were out there and you're just listening to it, like watch these, like they're just it's of a finished like production quality better than anything we've seen in any of the movies. And also there's just more of them and more than a few are like actually meaningful for like character development and stuff like that. So
I
this
agree.
is like such a pleasant surprise where I was like nervous both at the like the length and the volume of these, but also just like are we going to get more? It's like, yeah, we actually get a lot more.
When you told me that there was gonna be 35 minutes of them and the 10-minute reintroduction, I was like, I don't know. And then we watched the reintroduction, I was like, this is gonna be 35 minutes of like, I don't know. And then when I was watching the scenes, I was like, oh no, there's definitely like ones that I'm like, we could boot these, we don't need them. Like no boob honking, we don't need that. There's some in here that I'm like, oh shit, this was great. I'm glad it's included, and it should have actually been in the movie, in my opinion. If you like or even don't like Hobbs and Shaw, but you're kind of invested, and obviously you are if you're listening to us, you should watch these.
Also, there are way more, and like you showed me the list because you want to make sure you were watching the right things. Like you saw that list. There's like 15 featurettes, and like there's
Yes.
a lot of the movies have a lot of featurettes, but a lot of them are car based. Like there's one that's just like the Hobbs family, like looking into the family. Like oh, like that's like there's so much more to unpack with this Blu-ray and future laps that I'm very excited about. That for a
Yeah.
movie that we like but don't necessarily like as much as other ones. Like I think there's going to be more fun stuff to dig into supplemental feature wise on this one than almost any other movie.
I think so too, and I think that they're setting it up well for this to be a meaningful spin-off franchise.
Yeah, give us more of this. Give us more Hattie. Give us more Queenie, Mama Hobbs, anybody. Right?
Exactly. Please.
All right, Joe, let's take a break and let us bring in Nico and Kevo to talk about Hobbs and Shaw.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever. This is episode number 146. The Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. This episode is brought to you by Snowflake Memories. They also run a quilting business and use a lot of Valdani thread. Sorry, no storefront, but you can come visit them anytime. Just give them a call before you drop in. Snowflake Memories.
Well, shout out Snowflake Memories and welcome back to the show with us once again, including this episode, 2.5 more episodes with these guys. So like it feels like
No.
this is the end of the road, but there's more to come.
All roads
So
lead
we are
home.
very excited to welcome back Nico Vasillo and Kevo Reese of Husbands Talking More or Less. Hello, guys.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Welcome back, and if people are out there like, what are they going to talk about? We still are going to talk about, in some form, the video game, the Fast and Furious Crossroads video game we're going to talk about. So, still more F&F content coming your way this lap, so very cool. But we are here to talk about Hobbs and Shaw. We have one very important and probably very obvious question for you guys before we get into things. Would you say you are more of a Hobbs or a Shaw? Difficult.
You're a Hobbs. I know you are.
Yeah, I guess I'm a Hobbs.
And I'm a Sean. I know that.
I mean, they're both very similar, but also wildly different.
I want to be this new reinvented Shaw that they have decided to engineer very quickly in the last couple of films, who is very different from the person who killed Han, and instead is just this, like, grumpy
I'm a former MI6 agent, I am.
footy boy.
Bristol forever. Sex Pistols.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mick Jagger, Keith Moon, all that stuff,
Loves
right?
his mom.
Oh my god, no, yeah, for real. The mom factor in this movie,
Wait, Mama Shaw or Mama Hobbs? Or
both. The mama quotient in this film was spectacular.
Because I believe last episode you were not exactly thrilled with Mama Shaw. You did not like Helen Mirren as much, but here we are, and we've got Dame Helen Mirren here holding it down as Queenie in prison.
I think it's because her appearance felt a little bit more random last movie, kind of like Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart in this one.
Yeah.
But seeing that she is a character that they are developing, I think it's possible she's also going to be in F9. So, like, they're like,
She gets a spin-off.
I would love her and Hobbs' mom to be in the potential lady spin-off movie. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah,
Exactly.
please.
It just started to feel like The Love Boat. And this person walks in. And this person walks in. And this person walks in. Oh my god, you don't need this many fucking friends. And I'm glad that you have them.
But, like, Keanu was supposed to show up at one point, too. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, so Keanu, as I'm sure you read, was supposed to be maybe a villain or something, because this is directed by David Leitch, who he knows from his time with The Matrix and everything, and I think also the John Wick movies, and
And also Power Rangers.
That's not what they know each other
Power
from,
Rangers.
though.
They couldn't figure out how to get him in the movie enough, and so they want to have him in a future movie, maybe as a villain, maybe as the head of ETN. We'll talk about that. But yeah, as of right now,
Oh, I wanted to know if they knew that, like, how Helen Mirren got involved in these.
No, please tell us.
They were interviewing her in something, and they were like, what movie would you like to be in? She was like, I love the Fast and the Furious movies. Vin Diesel heard it and was like, well, if you're down, sure.
Helen Mirren, if you want to go be in a movie, there's always room for more women in the family. You just got to get behind the wheel, and you could just, you could be in the movie.
You know, when you're that big, you could just be like, I want to be in the Fast and the Furious movie, and Fast and the Furious is like, fuck yes, you do.
I think especially because it plays so much against her type, so the fact that she would be interested, obviously she's Helen Mirren and she's going to do an amazing job, whatever they decide to give her. But just hearing that she'd be interested, like, there are scenarios where you just wouldn't think to approach a person because it, like I said, seems so against type.
Exactly. That's what made it so much fun for me. And also she said that, like, the only thing that she's sad about is that she doesn't get to drive in the movies at all. Like, she really wants to be able to, like, drive a car and, like, race in the movies.
I do want to get out of jail, I do.
for a movie where there's no Dominic Toretto, there's no Vin Diesel impersonation to do, I guess the voice of the hour is Mama Shaw.
Because that's not like, there's no, ew, that's icky, you shouldn't be doing that to it, other than it's terrible.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Before we talk about the clutch Letty moment, a question that we have now done, this is the 9th time at least, if not more, and I still forgot to think about it until the end of the movie. What did you guys think of Hobbs and Shaw overall?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
You weren't a fan?
No.
That's okay.
It's not that it was bad so much as I think it put the focus in all the wrong places.
Okay.
Considering
Okay.
how much of the trailer was derived from the portion on Samoa, how little that took up of the film was kind of insulting. That music montage where they're getting ready and fixing the thing. I would rather other things earlier in the film have been shorter and seen more of Hobbs's family and seen more development there, and that's a huge element of what takes away from this film. Either this should have been 2 films and the Samoa stuff should have been its own movie, or they should have cut a bunch of the stuff from early on. Because we don't even find out, Elian Gonzalez, what's the name of the horrible company? Benetton?
Etion.
Etion. We don't even find out who they are for the first 40 minutes of the movie. There's plenty of
Right.
stuff that you could have cut.
And I think a lot of that is the function of now, it's kind of the MCU syndrome where this movie can't just be a movie that's to set up the entire Hobbs and Shaw verse, right? If you do too much on Samoa, you can't really go back to Samoa. I don't know. But I agree. Like, I think that there are other things that it could have focused on. But what we have here is still, even what's here, not really your cuppa.
Well, that's difficult because it wasn't a Fast and Furious movie, so no matter
Yeah,
what,
that's for sure.
I reached for that cup of Sprite and it turned out to be vodka. And I like vodka, but not when I'm reaching for Sprite.
You know, Joey, it's funny that you mentioned the MCU because this actually has ties to MCU, shout out for HTML, because it was co-written by screenwriter Drew Pearce, who co-wrote Iron Man 3. He wrote and directed the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King, and did uncredited rewrites on Spider-Man Far From Home. No, Spider-Man Homecoming.
Damn, I
Very
didn't know
cool.
that. That's very cool.
You know, just to jump back a minute, when I say this wasn't a Fast and Furious movie, I do need to double down. This is not Deckard Shaw from any film thus far.
Yeah.
This guy is just this side of Lethal Weapon. He's just like a hardened cop who's had a bad day. Whereas in previous films, he was a psychoterrorist hyper-murderer.
And suddenly it turns out that he was framed 8 years ago, so he's really not all that bad.
And it's because of all the women. All the women and the children that humanized him when he saved that baby, and now it's his mom and his sister with Bristol and
Did you guys catch the main thing that kind of explains why his character is different? That when they're in his garage and they're like walking, you know, like Hobbs and Hattie and Shaw are like walking through the garage and he sees the Mini Cooper.
Yeah, it's an Italian Job reference.
Now they're just being like, oh, he's Handsome Rob from the Italian Job, not a psychoterrorist.
That means nothing to me, though, because I haven't seen the Italian Job, so as someone who is just now a fan of the Fast Furious films, I'm just kind of annoyed that they are, like, weirdly, completely rewriting his character, and we're just supposed to be okay with it. And I like the character that they have turned him into, so, like, part of me is okay with it, because I don't take it that seriously. It is a little egregious.
I would rather him be playing his long-lost, never-before-mentioned twin brother, Rexall.
I'm Beckard.
Rexall Shaw.
I'm Beckard Shaw.
Beckard Rexall Shaw.
Like, this movie does really go out of its way to be like, it's not the Shaw that you remember, right? Like,
It
it's
does, yeah.
trying to establish the justice for Han of it all, like saying he's a different guy now. Like, you know, you can like him now. Like, Han's coming back, but like, you don't have to hate Deckard because like Dex is a good guy. I never really felt, I don't think, the heavy-handedness of the you were, you know, MI6 betrayed you or whatever. Like, it wasn't your fault. Like, I never felt how on the nose that truly was until this time. But yeah, it's there in a big way.
And it feels like they snuck it in because I barely even noticed that it was happening until toward the end when they were talking about it. And I was like, oh, wait, what? Like, at this point, I really will not be surprised if it turns out in F9, Deckard secretly helped Han fake his death so he could become a Black Ops agent. And Deckard was a good guy the whole time, guys.
Nope, hate it, would be so angry. Because here's the thing. Fixing your art later on does not make what I watched not kind of a waste of time. Oh, justice for Han, but like, I am now starting to feel like, well, then what the fucking point? Like, part of why that movie worked was because Deckard Shaw was such a villain. He was such a threat. He was so scary. And now that that was never the case, he was never really that guy. Why do I care?
That's the interesting thing in both good and bad ways about the franchise. Now that you have seen all of the movies, all the visual content. I mean, there is, you know, cutscenes in the video game that we're going to talk about. The franchise has been both wildly effective and also, like, frustratingly effective, I guess, in completely rewriting its own canon to just fit whatever. Like, I think more so in both good and bad ways than maybe any other franchise.
There is definitely some comic pendulum here. That way that, like, number one, I want to go out of my way to fuck this movie for spoiling the end of Game of Thrones for people, I guess. Like, that actively bothers me because they'd be pretty pissed if someone spoiled their films.
Yeah.
Did you know about that, or did you...
Yeah, I mean, I knew,
Okay.
but, like, it feels like, in a really weird way, defeating someone else's art in a way you yourself would never be a big fan of.
And even, like, that aside, the Game of Thrones reference is not going to hold up very well. Like, I mean, it's still going to be a big series, but, like, they go back to that well 3 times, I think. And, like, there's 3 different Game of Thrones references. It's like, what are you doing?
I think the second thing for me is that this film really could have been summarized as it's the Rock playing a The Rock type character, Jason Statham playing a Jason Statham character. Then there's a lady, also some cameos, you know their names because of the title. Like, it could have been any generic 1970s action hour. All that mattered was that The Rock was playing a The Rock type character, and he makes references to his humongous penis and his humongous muscles and how jacked he is and how funny he is and his eyebrow thing. He literally does his eyebrow thing. He's not even playing a reasonable facsimile of The Rock. He's just playing The Rock. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but, The Rock. Then here comes Jason Statham, who, I don't think that either one of them has a penchant for killing, but, he's basically playing Jason Statham's character type. I wear jackets, I blow stuff up, I'm a ninja, I am. And, he plays this very sort of Jason Statham-y character, plus girl, plus cameos. Idris Elba, when you've realized that the popcorn is burning and you're running to the microwave and you're in slow motion, and every pop that is a pop too many that's burning the popcorn is making you angrier and angrier because it's starting to sound sad. By the end of the movie, that is what I felt about Idris Elba delivering his dialogue. When he was then we'll try 5 times. Zap. I was popcorn, no. I don't know. This was Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue featuring half of Fast and Furious.
Yeah, the plot did feel a little more Spy Racers than feature film.
I think the bigger issue here, plot-wise, is that, to what you said before, you don't really know what the movie's about. The movie's about the virus, but the movie, it's about Etion, but you don't, you don't really know the villain. You know the villain, but you don't really know the villain. It's not poorly paced. It's just
we don't really know where it's all heading.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
By the time you get to know where it's headed, the movie is over. There's no coming down. The final battle ends. That's the end of the movie.
Into the sunset.
It's the weirdest, kind of anti-climax to a movie ever.
And I do want to compliment something, right? I know that off on X's for Podcast, where you can check out deep dives on all of the week's X-Men comics. I know one of the things we talk about is, did this need to cost this much to tell this story? There was recently a 2-parter that came out in the same week as a single issue. The 2-parter cost $8 altogether, $7.98. The single issue cost $3.99. And we all kind of generally agreed, as much as we enjoyed both, the single issue packed a lot more content than the 2-parter did. So in that regard, we kind of felt like maybe the 2-parter shouldn't have been $8. That was maybe a little too much. I feel like there is something inelegant but well-intentioned about how much movie they fist into this one feature film. They say at some point to themselves, we looked back at our earlier films. The best and worst things you can say about Fast and Furious number 1 is it's very 1999, 2000, when 2001.
Yeah.
It's very that time, It's very the car version of The Faculty, the car version of Cruel Intentions.
Mm-hmm.
It's very that thing. Fast and Furious 2 is basically a Miami-themed Micro Machines playset and doing a D&D session with that. The third one is high-speed appropriation. No. But then the fourth one is particularly kind of what am I watching? There's not really a whole movie there. There's trying to figure out what the first few were and could become. You also kind of need the mini movie that goes before it for it to all make sense. But then out of nowhere, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all way too long. And this suffered that same fate. It almost seems to me like in an effort to not be what they once were, way too light on plot, they have mistaken padding. One of the things I teach my kids is, your teachers make you write 5-paragraph essays because that's a format that they can use to judge against things. So, or when they say 2,000 words, it's because that's a format they can use to judge against things. That does not mean that a 2,000-word essay or a 5-paragraph essay is perfect, right? It just means that that's an easy rubric for a teacher to use, and when they have to grade 600 kids, shut the fuck up, it's fine. But so students get used to saying things like, thus consequently, it became clear in the end unto all parties viewing the situation by any metric from any perspective. What you really should say is they noticed it was over. They just don't understand that sometimes it's okay to Hemingway. You don't always need to Sedaris, right? There's a huge difference between, being a David Sedaris who can write a single sentence that represents, 6 paragraphs and you're sort of fluffing your essay. The Fast and Furious films are fluffy.
Yeah, there's no really getting around that, and I think it's just a matter of enjoying them, enjoying what's good about them, and not that you're dwelling on what's wrong, because I know we're just having a conversation, but there's something just, I don't know, it's good and bad, and especially when we're committed to a project that is to watch these movies on repeat forever, we kind of have to focus on the positives, right? And like you're not wrong.
When I was watching it this time, and something that I do really, really enjoy about this movie, and I said it before, is how much fun I find it. Like, it's so lighthearted, and coming off of Seven, which was, losing Paul Walker, and Fate, we think that there's a lot of problems with, just because I don't even remember the plot of Fate most of the times. Like, I just know that Charlize is a bad guy, and she's trying to nuke the world, and then Dom's baby's in a plane. But like, to have this one where it's just like a lot of jokes and just goofiness, that I really like the breath that I get watching this one. It's not as tense. Like, of course they're saving the world, but it doesn't ever feel as high stakes as some of the Fast and the Furiouses do.
Well, so the goal in here, so I think the issue with Fate is that it's like, what is Cypher's plan? It's like accountability, but like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And here, Etion's goal seems noble, which I feel like most villains' goals do. They want to prevent the end of the human race because we're apparently on track to end it by 2096, but their plan to prevent it is basically genocide. And it's like, in that regard, not exactly fun and breezy. Like, did you guys think this was fun? Like, taking on the fact that it's not really a Fast and Furious movie, did you think it was fun, or did you not have fun with it?
I definitely agree with Joe about it being very light and breezy and fun. But for me, that sort of undercut the extremity of the situation they were in. She's got this virus that apparently can kill literally everyone on the planet. And, that's scary to be watching right now. And just like how silly they are being with it all. I also don't understand why they immediately jumped to, why did they have to kill Hetty if it was only in her hand? Couldn't they just
cut her hand off?
Yeah.
No,
we kept
virus
saying,
spreads. A virus spreads all over your body. You have to like kill and burn her.
had to get vacuumed out like from throughout her entire body?
That's what they're leading you to believe, that it's like in these capsules that are flowing through her bloodstream. Like, she's doing like dialysis.
I thought she said it was in her hands.
She wound up
Her
looking
hand.
like a fucking Ghostbuster.
Well, she put it in her hand, but then it like spread. It's in
And that
all
was, I
of her.
guess, just like an injector site.
Yeah, I mean, it's sci-fi, so
It did take me a while to adjust to Hattie, by the way, because I am used to Vanessa Kirby from the first 2 seasons of The Crown, where she played Princess Margaret, and is not this action diva. But I loved her by the end, and I don't want a sequel that she's not in.
yeah, we think that she's at least firmly part of this world, like the Hobbs and Shaw world. I can't see them ever trying to get rid of her, and we're hoping that when like the Letty movie comes out, she's a big part of that as well.
By far, I think the most dynamic new character they've introduced since at least Giselle.
And it works her being in the Hobbs and Shaw verse because she is a Shaw, and if she gets with Luke, then she'll be a Hobbs.
Yep,
Exactly.
Hobbs and Shaw, literally. Man, because it does feel in a way that this movie is essentially like, hey, here's Hattie. If nothing else, this movie's like, hey, here's
It's
Hattie.
her
And like,
intro
yeah,
movie.
cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's her welcoming movie for sure.
It's starting to get frustrating, though, how many people have family waiting in the wings, knowing what's coming in F9. Like, too many siblings are just, like, long lost, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, if you guys have noted, I don't even know if you paid attention because they so undersell it. Owen Shaw, not in this movie.
Oh, no, I noticed that. I kept thinking that he was going to show up at the very end somehow, like he did last movie.
I feel with how little he was in of the last movie, I'm not surprised that he did not return.
Because he's very, very briefly in the background, not him, but his character as a child in the background of either the Keith Moon or the Mick Jagger. Like when they have those flashbacks, he's in the background of one of those. At one point in like the opening scene with Queenie, she mentions Owen, like your brother Owen or whatever. But like for a movie that is literally about these two families, right, and the extended Shaws that we know and the Hobbses that we meet, to not bring in an established Shaw, it's like, what?
I think Luke Evans was just like, I'm good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do we know anything about how Luke Evans feels about... These are tough movies to film.
Okay, so here's a question for you that sort of spins off this. In real life, from what we understand, unless it is still my hope that it is all of an idea cooked up to increase drama that will then come to a head and be like, oh, we were just kidding all along. Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson hate each other, right? So that this is now kind of separate tracks.
Yeah.
So do you see a world in which the main franchise ends, after 9 and then 10 and 11 or 10-1 and 10-2, whatever they're going to call it. Do you see any version of the world where these two worlds do not re-intersect?
It is very comic booky in that way. It's not unusual for an extended run to, not to get too comic technically, but like oftentimes they'll kind of stick a miniseries to get out the whole idea they're trying to get out before it's too late. And when that first writer leaves, the guy who was writing the miniseries, they just kind of give him the title. Because look how much experience he already has with all these characters. He did that fucking cool miniseries, remember? Give him the book. And that's kind of what it feels like they're going to do. They're going to transition the cars out, and it's going to stay the funny Action Men franchise, basically the Odd Couple with guns.
Well, there were cars in this movie. At times, it almost felt like they looked back over their script and said, shit, we forgot the cars, and threw cars places. But still, they made sure that there were cars in there to a degree, not to the same degree as the main line of the franchise, but that's okay. I am most curious to see what else is produced following this one, whether it is definitely getting a Hobbs and Shaw sequel, whether it is the female-led film, I don't know, but I think the future of the franchise beyond the mainline ending really depends a lot on critical response to this film and where they go next with it, because it could either be really great or it could be like Solo and they could be like, nope, no more Fast and Furious presents.
So this one underperformed a tiny bit at the box office. It did not make $1 billion. I think it made like 700 or 800 million. Like, it made like a lot of money, but not what they were hoping for. But they did greenlight a Hobbs and Shaw 2. They have not talked about that much, but there is one of those coming. There's the female-led, the Letty-led one that we do not know much about. There's 9, 10, 11. With all that said, and the rumors and whatever, would you say are you more optimistic or pessimistic? Like, do you think that we're going to get more good than bad from here on out, or do you think that like our best days are behind us? You can be realistic. I mean, like, we're Joe and I have to, like, we're contractually obligated to, like, we can't not be optimistic. It's like, if we're not optimistic, like, why continue? Like, we have to pretend, we have to hope.
I'm actually genuinely optimistic. Because you know how we felt after 4, or at least how I felt after 4. They're setting seeds for things.
It's really, for so many different reasons, hard for me to say, because we don't have more information about the Letty-led film.
Fair.
We don't know what other films they might have in the works, and just with everything going on in the world right now, it's just taking the wind out of the sails of so many projects. I don't know whether to be optimistic. I would say I am at least realistically 50-50 on it. I feel like it could probably go either way. I hope that it does well and that they do good and that the films are great, but I don't know.
It's tough because this doesn't feel like the same franchise. Like I said, this feels like its own thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I understand that it's not really the same thing as saying... So, I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple of years ago, they tried to make the Inhumans happen, and they put them in theaters, and then they decided it wasn't going to be a movie, it was going to be a TV show. And then they decided they were going to put the pilot of the TV show in the theaters, and then they quickly tried to bury the shit out of the show and pretend it never happened. That kind of feels like what they tried to do here, not bury it, but try and sneak something in without anybody noticing. So this feels like a very different creature. This does not feel like Fast and Furious, even if I don't agree that it was necessarily lighthearted, because I think the body horror of this film was a little more than lighthearted. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that they literally refer to murdering people as a little more than lighthearted. I don't necessarily think it's severe. I don't necessarily think it's dark for the most part. It's no darker than it's no darker than Spy Racers. Like, yeah. It's not like the world's heaviest material. But like in that regard, yeah, you know what? I might have loved this more as an animated film with them voice acting it. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a Fast and Furious movie for me. It's a generic action movie starring Dwayne Johnson playing a Dwayne Johnson-like character and Jason Statham playing a Jason Statham-like character, plus girl, starring in their names from the title.
So last week we had a listener write in about how he thinks, because we have people sending their rankings all the time, which we're going to get from you guys on our Relap Recap in 4 weeks or whenever that's going to happen. But he wrote in about how he's on a new rankings, but he was thinking about how, like, it doesn't make sense to him anymore to rank the first 8 or even this one together, like all movies together, because it feels like there's such a shift after 3. When you do rankings, it really should be the first 3 and then the last 5 or 6, and then that's just how you do the rankings, like sort of 2 different rankings. We kind of weighed the merits of that, whether that's true or not. We're still, it makes sense, but also I'm not sure if we're ready to commit to that fully or whatever. Is there now a third bracket as well? Have we seen, because I think there is an undeniable shift after 3, but was there another shift later, sometime between 4 and this movie, where we went from being whatever they were to a new thing? Or do you think is it consistent from 4 on out?
Well, I think there's a natural shift after 7, but because we've only had one movie, it's a little harder to really see how that's going to affect the franchise as a whole.
And I think part of it has to do with the way this was such a hard pivot. Now they're going around the world and they're being cops. Like, this was such a hard pivot from pulling off a heist, breaking into somewhere. Yeah, they were breaking into somewhere, but this was like on the up and up from the beginning. It just feels like a very different franchise. And not in an insulting way, because I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but, it's kind of like now it's just sort of like The Rock is a cop franchise, like another one of those. And Jason Statham is a surly Pete Wisdom stand-in kind of thing. Like, it doesn't feel dynamically unique in the ways that Fast and Furious does, even if we've felt like some of the bloom is off of the Fast and Furious's originality rose.
Yeah, but I think that that's kind of their goal at the same time, is to make something completely different and accessible to a different group that maybe haven't followed along with the Fast and the Furious from the beginning. That it's like kind of an in-between where like you get some of the things that you do like about Fast and the Furious, but also they're like, okay, we can essentially start a whole new franchise here and just run with The Rock being a cop, buddy cops with Jason Statham.
Like, I guess if the alternative is to have the same movie 9 times in a row, like, that doesn't feel good, right?
No, and I'm more, if anything, sort of just kind of like blah on this movie hinging on so many fruitless payoffs. I don't think this is the worst film I've ever seen. I don't think it's the worst film of the franchise, but it's not a movie I'm going to go put on again. My favorite parts were in Samoa. The Samoan characters were the by far best part of the film. Hattie is a lot of fun. She's an amazing character, really well portrayed. I enjoyed the Helen Mirren cameo, but I don't feel like this was a Fast and Furious movie. I feel like it was a fun action movie, and if I saw it in the theaters with some people, I'd have had a good time, and if I saw it at a friend's house, I'd have had a good time. There's nothing functionally wrong with this film, but it doesn't have a uniqueness to it. It doesn't have a razzle-dazzle. I'm not talking about songs where they say the name girl or my man. Not like that. But there's a reason that songs that get very specific about a girl or guy's name frequently have a little bit more oomph to them. Think about Oh Sheila by Ready for the World. Or I see that face you're making at me right in front of my face.
I know it, but they won't.
Okay, Hey There Delilah.
Yep.
Think about songs where you make it very specific. Specificity might even be exclusionary, right? Like when I listen to a specific Tori Amos song, Sugar, she says Bobby's collecting bees. When I was in high school, I so identified with everything in that song, maybe not that particular line, but I changed the name Bobby to the 2-syllable guy I was fixated on at the time, Tommy, because it was so specific, but I could still make it about me. This was just so generic, it didn't feel like it was about anything. I don't think it was a horrible film, and I think it definitely used its budget well. I appreciated the numbers of explosions and blue screens. Thank you, guys. The film was good. This was not the next Fast and Furious movie, and I'm left wanting for Vroom Vroom family time.
I think that's all well taken, and I think your mileage may vary on just how much the charm of The Rock and Jason Statham will carry you. If you're the kind of person like me who will go see Skyscraper just because it's a big action movie with The Rock in it, then I think you're probably more prone to cut a movie like this some slack. But if you are there for the type of content that you have seen before, and I think it's fair to be left kind of wanting a little. Like, this is of all the movies in the franchise, this is the most divisive among people who listen to this show who have written in. Not like people generally might like this movie more than others. in the franchise, but I think overall, like there's people who have this like definitively as their least favorite Fast and Furious movie because they're like it's not a Fast and Furious movie. And there's other people who have it like second or third overall. So like there's more divisiveness, and not in a bad way, to this movie than any other movie, just because I don't know that people know what to make of it.
I mean, and my rating would be very different if this was a Helen Mirren podcast or a Dwayne The Rock Johnson podcast. If this was not a Fast and Furious podcast, if I was not looking at this as the show about the heart of the race, if I was not looking at this as a show about the Fast Force and the Furious Force, and if I wasn't looking for family to be this thing that you define, because like Fast and Furious is about you define family. This was about your family defines you. Quite literally, it was their physical families. This was not them finding their family and, you know, finding the dream inside of them. This did not hit my rubric for a Fast and Furious movie, and as like, you know, from my grading essay days, if you turned in a real fucking great essay but it was totally off topic, I would still try and give you like a B- and be like, but you nailed it. I just wish it had been on topic. That this was a pretty good off-topic essay.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a very good, positive, like, hey, buddy, you tried, right?
Yep.
So
I have a specific movie question for you guys, something that we've talked about a lot, and I want to hear your theories on it. Do you guys have any theory on who is the voice of Etion?
Oh, like the character or the voice actor?
No, the
well,
character.
so the voice actor was Ryan Reynolds.
My thought was that the character is probably what's her predator girl Charlize character.
Cypher, yeah.
Cypher. I thought it was probably her.
I think that's a little bit too much for one character, though. I see where you're coming from, and I'm not sure who else it could possibly be. I wonder if maybe we even need to deep dive all the way back to The Rock's first appearance and think about enemies that he has made.
It's his daughter!
Yeah, exactly.
When we saw this in theaters, I was convinced it was Charlize, because I was like, I have seen every movie she's ever made, I know her voice, I know her vocal intonations, it's Charlize, done deal. And we left the theater, and Joe's wife Rachel was like, oh, no, it's Ryan Reynolds. Like, I heard Ryan Reynolds. I'm like, no, Rachel, come on. I did the pod, like, I get it. And then, like, the news came out that it was Ryan Reynolds who did the voice, but he did it, like, as a stand-in for whatever. So I will apologize again. Rachel, you were right. Not that she listens to this. Our best theory, I think, is that it's a character we don't know yet, but it's someone who Cypher reports to. And whether that's going to be like the Keanu character, but it's the way to bridge these two things back together. Because there's like the Cypher in the main franchise, then there's the Etion in this franchise, and if Cypher is involved in Etion or tied into it somehow, it would make sense that that's kind of the bridge that brings us back together. I don't know if that makes sense, I don't know if that's doable, but that's kind of the best theory, that's our working theory right now in the pod.
But wasn't she just like the most powerful person on the planet in Fate?
Yes,
exactly.
So why would
yes.
she report to Etion?
Because you have to have a bigger bad.
I just hope whoever it is also from Prometheus.
Ooh, Fassbender.
Oh my god, the Fast Bender and the Furious.
Do you think she could be the ultimate villain that would carry the next 4 movies? Could they fight her 4 times?
I think she looks like she has fiber optic cable coming out of her head. I don't want to put anything past her.
Okay.
And you're joking when you say that, but we just saw someone get, like, upgraded with cyber optic, etc. So, you know.
One thing, to hard pivot here for a second, one thing that I would love to see, that in the beginning of this movie when Ryan Reynolds shows up, and I don't think this is not going to happen, but I could also see us kind of, you know, Kevo, you mentioned earlier the Marvel one-shots. I would kind of like to see a one-shot of the Ryan Reynolds character. It had been 6 months since he saw Hobbs, but, like, that's in the time that we know Hobbs. So, like, I would like to see, like, a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of, like, Ryan Reynolds, like, behind the scenes of all these things and, like, kind of helping Hobbs through 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I think that would be kind of fun. I don't think it's too heavy of a lift to, like, do a 10-minute kind of thing with Ryan Reynolds. You know, I don't want a full movie about it, but I think that that's the kind of thing where I think done right with the meta humor that Deadpool has, that feels like Ryan Reynolds would be game for.
Well, it would not be the first time that director David Leitch did something like that with Ryan Reynolds. He actually directed the Deadpool short film No Good Deed that aired before Logan while it was in theaters as a teaser for Deadpool 2.
Oh, I forgot that existed.
Yeah, this guy's backstory is actually fascinating to me. He did stunts on like 19 episodes of Buffy. We just watched the episode of Power Rangers that he was in this afternoon, Lightspeed Rescue. up to the challenge. He bullies the adult Power Rangers of that season and challenges them to a fight. But then in the end, he's a good guy. And this is the guy who directed the movie we just watched.
Two guys together did the first John Wick movie. It's this guy, David Leitch, and Chad Stahelski. And Chad Stahelski was Keanu's stunt double on The Matrix. And so both of these guys came from the world of stunts. They teamed up at some point. I think David Leitch was involved. He was like a stunt stuff on Matrix Reloaded. They came together. They teamed up with Keanu, but they both have gone on to like do movies. Like they've both expanded and exploded into. I think that's why in this movie and in the John Wick movies, like the action is so good because they come from action. Like they know how to make it look good. They know how to actually physically, literally do it. And so going all the way back to Buffy and to the Matrix and John Wick and whatever, it's cool to see someone who is capable behind the camera coming from the world of another thing, because that other thing looks so fucking good when they're able to capture it the way they do, right? So
I think it's possible that they met through Buffy because my research also told me that Chad Stahelski did work on Buffy.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Small world.
Do either of you have any other notes or thoughts or anything that you want to share before we play a couple games?
Well, my Clutch Letty moment, which I never got to say.
Oh, none of
None
us
of us
did.
did.
So I think my Clutch Letty moment was probably, and I'm not like that normally, but I'm going to give it to Shaw. When he used his own car as a ramp, that was Letty pulling off some shit that no one, like, so he's the Letty. So hold on, if Hobbs is the Dom, Shaw is the Letty. So that actually does mean that Shaw wears the pants.
Does that mean that Hattie is Brian?
Oh, she's the
Yeah.
other love interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dom's other love interest, exactly.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Shaw is an outside the box. I like that, though. Kevin, what about you? Do you have a clutch Letty moment?
Well, Hattie is actually the person that I would like to award it to. And now that I'm saying those names back to back, Letty and Hattie, that's a thing.
Yep.
Injecting herself with the virus. I feel like that is a very Letty move.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
a good one. I had a Hattie moment as well, and I thought that it was when she's fighting Hobbs when she first runs into him, and she's like, "Are you taking it easy on me?" I felt like that was a very Letty moment. Like Letty wouldn't want to fight Hobbs at like half strength because he's like feeling sad for her.
I think overall this movie probably has the most pound for pound Letty of any movie in a while. Even though she's not in it, I feel like there's a lot of movies, a lot of characters that kind of embody her, like the points you're making. I think even Mama Hobbs at the end, where she's like, "Guys, cut the shit. We're gonna make this work. Like we need to come together." Both a Mia den mother kind of thing, but also a hey, cut the nonsense. We need to do this thing. So I think that everyone kind of embodies a little bit of Letty.
Accepted.
Yeah, that's fair.
The last question that I have is: do we get any sense of the significance to Hattie's necklace? I know it's got the lockpick on it, but when they're on the plane, when they get on the plane, Dex says to her, "Still wearing that?" and put the pin back on. So, like, it feels like something from their childhood, but
He said he gave it to her.
it feels like there's more to it that maybe we're going to know more about later, but that feels like a weird kind of thing to tease.
They were
I
estranged.
agree.
That's what Mama Shaw was saying.
Okay.
Although we hadn't talked in a while and we were estranged, you still were thinking about me, is how I perceived it.
I think because Jason Statham is just generally so aggressive, the way that he delivered that moment came across so much more aggressive than affectionate, and that's what threw Joey, and it certainly is what threw me, because I would have agreed that it did feel like they lingered on that moment significantly, that it felt like it should have been something more important. But now that, Joey, you've explained it that way and said that, you know, he's surprised that she's carrying a token from him when they're estranged, because the 8 years ago I was framed shit was thrown in out of nowhere, and because he is so much more aggressive than affectionate, that scene did not read the same way, because again, they are just barreling Shaw down this redemption road.
Yeah, they're trying to get him good pretty quick, right? Like, they're just doing everything they can.
He's got this sister, and she's great, and she loves him.
The mom's
and
great,
he was,
and they're all criminals, but
Yeah.
they're fun.
And now Hobbs is in love with the sister.
Yep.
So I don't know if we mentioned, but we had like a franchise-long theory that actually came from Mike Manzi, that he thought that that Hobbs could be gay. He's essentially asexual, like in every movie he does. Like The Rock never really has romantic partners. In 8, he's got all the soccer moms who are there, but he doesn't seem interested in them. And we were kind of hoping out for, especially before we had the video game, of before we had other things, like there was virtually no queer representation. We're like, that would be a cool thing to have such a prototypically, stereotypically male actor who has played gay before and be cool to be a gay character in this, and then he goes and kisses Hattie. And it's like, well, maybe he's pan, maybe he's bi, whatever, but like, it was a little bit of a bummer to us in the theaters, even though, who could not be in love with either of them because they're both beautiful human beings.
It's very sweet that you guys read that into it and wanted it to happen. That disappointment is something that gays sort of just feel with every single fucking thing. So imagine that feeling times like 100 with everything you watch. I can feel where you're coming from. I would have never thought they would do that in this franchise, though. Like when I said in a previous episode, or no, when I said on the New York Comic Con panel that I want more gay men in this franchise, I don't expect any amount of prominence or romance. I expect it to be a tertiary or secondary character at best, and I expect no love interest whatsoever, and I just pray that he's not incredibly effeminate to make it very clear that he's gay. Yeah, it would have been wonderful if Hobbs was gay, but that's just not something.
We were hoping that we would have gotten, like, phone rings, like, oh yeah, that's my boyfriend, and then just hangs up the phone at the bare minimum, right? Like, it just a passive reference that he just drops it. We'd never expected to see him or them together. Yeah, because we hadn't seen, like, any of his, like, family or interactions up until now.
Yeah, because it came from a place where, because we've talked about all lap long, and, for several laps in the show about how, for the most part, pretty good about inclusion this franchise is, how they kind of drop the ball on queer representation, and for us to have such a mysterious somewhat, even though we don't know a ton about a lot of people, like, Dom has a brother we didn't know about, whatever, right? Like, for have a mysterious background character of Hobbs, we're like, oh, maybe that's how this all comes together, and then, no.
I just don't see them letting him be gay. Like, I appreciate
That
what you're
sucks
saying,
for
but,
you
like,
guys. Sorry.
yeah.
People are working on it and getting better. There are people who shrewdly realize that making a character who's that major be gay will dramatically reduce their audience, and there's people who champion for it and work throughout the entire production or series when it comes to some shows to try and get that representation. And like I said, I'm really just hoping for secondary or tertiary, because even that would be a triumph for this sort of film and the kind of audience that they know that they draw in.
Not to get us put on a list or anything, but the reason that they tend not to put major homosexuality in action films is because you can't have it in China.
I knew that this is what it was going to come down to. I thought about this too. Like, you have to think about how it plays internationally on a movie like this big. Like, you'd cut out like a ton of markets for them, and I know that has to be a factor in them choosing to not do this.
And at a certain point, people need to just stand up and do it anyway, but we'll see. I only have 2 other notes.
Go for it.
One is that I think part of the problem with this film for me, on top of anything else that we've discussed, is Hobbs and Shaw are still dicks to each other at the end of it. When you have what is ostensibly, even without Hattie being their, third member, when you have something that is like a buddy duo, these guys just hate each other the entire time, I just can't root for that anymore. And, you can still rib each other and, that sort of thing, but they really just seem to goddamn hate each other. And I don't necessarily want to keep watching that. That's just painful.
You're 100% right, and I still laugh every time I think about that. The lesson they learn, like the thing that this movie hinges on, is they're like, oh, we should work together. That's the moral of the story. Like, if we don't try to prove to one another that we're the strongest and hit him separately, if we hit him together, we'll win. It's like, yeah, like that's the most basic, like, just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Just be people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I guess we'll see how they're developed in F9 and the sequel, and whether or not they start to become more amicable. My second note is just a funny thing. Dwayne Johnson joined filming 2 weeks after it started because he was wrapping filming Jungle Cruise, which has still not yet been released.
Oh yeah, his Emily Blunt movie.
He finished Jungle Cruise in early fall 2018, and that movie is currently on the schedule for July 2021.
Jeez.
I wonder how you have 2 weeks of this movie to shoot without him. Like, I guess it's the Hattie stuff and like but it feels like
Pickup
there's not
shots
two.
and
Yeah.
They had to film like most of this movie that he's not in those 2 weeks. Like,
it even explains why there's so many awkward, like dead-on facial shots of everybody.
Yeah.
Nico, any other final thoughts?
No, not really.
Well, then let's play a couple of games. First up, this ain't no 10-second race, aka Boy Do We have a podcast for you. And guys, very exciting news. Last episode we shared it. One of the tweets that Rachel fired off in between episodes, we got someone to email us from that one. So, like, Rachel doesn't get points. Like, Rachel just wins overall. But Rachel has gotten something that we've never gotten before. So we have a high watermark to reclaim.
She killed it.
She did.
This makes her queen.
Let us first review last time for The Fate of the Furious. I found Kenneth Pattengale at K. Pattengale enjoying a nice evening in watching The Fate of the Furious. And it was pictures of Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, Jason Statham, just three bald men all smiling the same smile. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Nothing. Joe, you found a mini little thread between Alexis I'm Drowning, Romero Walker, and BLM about watching Death Proof, and then Planet Terror, Machete Kills. We love all those. Boy, do we have a podcast for you, or multiple episodes of a podcast for you. Nothing. Nico, you found a very long thread from Josh Frulinger at JFra, who was talking about the Fast and Furious for dozens of tweets. The direct tweet you responded to was, Vin Diesel says Furious 7 ending is best moment in cinematic history. We won't argue it either. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Nothing. And I'm not going to spoil, but you can see where it's going. Kevo found Chef Swagger from Hell's Kitchen at Chef Spurls. The beginning of The Fate of the Furious is ridiculous. We said it only gets crazier from there. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Nothing. Of course not. Failure across the board. If it wasn't for Michael emailing in saying that, his wife got Rachel's tweet, I would think that we're getting blacklisted, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
So first up, Nico found, bunch of symbols. No under 18, Hobbs, Bio F9 at Mia Juice. And then it's some Asian characters, hashtag #SHobbs. So I guess this is a Shaw Hobbs /
This appears to be, that is what this appears to be. Yes.
Oh, translate tweet, partial, maybe. Okay, so Shobbs, hashtag Hobbs and Shaw, hashtag fanfic, hashtag fanbook, hashtag Deckard Shaw, hashtag Luke Hobbs, hashtag Hattie Shaw, hashtag Margarita, hashtag Samantha Hobbs. And it's art of Hobbs and Shaw and Samantha all in, like, loving embrace. Like, they're one big happy family. And then there's one of Hattie and I guess that's Madam M, right? Yeah, with together. Looks like maybe they're at a wedding, too. So maybe this is amazing.
It's like a comic book. This is pretty cool.
I'm going to say this is amazing. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
I like the what was it? Shobbs. We never shipped them together like that.
But it was in front of us all along. It was very obvious shipping.
It's so obvious, and we totally missed it.
All right, Kevo found DFastXO at D_Speeder watched The Fate of the Furious, and it's still a good movie. My favorite scene was the ice scene and the submarine. Going to be watching the last Fast and Furious movie, which is Hobbs and Shaw, tomorrow.
Ooh, good tweet.
Check out our next episode all about it. Boy, do we have a podcast
for you.
I love how you customize these as you go.
I tried, because we didn't do it for a while, and that didn't work.
So
we're trying something new. It still might not work, but...
Yeah, because the one that Rachel hit on was just straight.
I love Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah, boy, do we have a podcast for you. Just straight. I'm going with Aubrey with 2 E's at baby with 2 Y's _driver, and her tweet is just, wait, I'm actually really enjoying Hobbs and Shaw. Wait. So... boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Any customization or no?
We really enjoy Hobbs and Shaw, too. I like that she's very surprised that she's enjoying it.
I don't know. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. We're going to go with this one. I mean, I haven't been hitting anything. I found Spooky Cockburn Wild at Kissy Perks, who quote tweeted Lover's Discourse saying Vanessa Kirby Best Actress 2021. And then Kissy Perks says, wait, is this Hattie and Hobbs and Shaw? Then her just jamming on a keyboard for a while.
Yeah.
We love her too. I am so in love with Hattie Shaw. I found that she was in the latest Mission Impossible movie.
Yes.
She's also going to be in an upcoming movie that the trailer just dropped with Shia LaBeouf, which is very exciting.
Your world's crossing over. Yeah.
Incredible actors. Boy, do we. I mean, we love Hattie so much. I'd never Googled Hattie Shaw before, or I never Twittered Hattie Shaw before, and
good
it
move.
worked out pretty well, I think.
That's pretty smart.
Cool. So better luck to us this time. I think that's 2 games in a row, maybe, with 0 points across the board, which is just,
Rough.
terrible.
But special credit to Rachel for knocking it
course.
out.
I know, dude. Home run. Seriously.
Okay, the last game we have to play. Dude, what's my car?
Dude, what? My car. What?
Your car, dude.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to our repository? Suppository.
Suppository.
Of car pictures that people have emailed in. If you want us to guess a car picture, send an email to family@cageclub.me. We'll play it on the show. But Kevo, I would like you to pick a number between 1 and 8.
4.
We're going to Hector Pena. Subject line, is this a car pick or a truck pick? Hey Joey's, I have a special car for y'all. This vehicle was made for... I actually don't know what its purpose is. I mean that it is a car body with a truck bed in the back. It looks very cool and weird at the same time, for me at least. I gotta say, this could be a good car to drive because people will give you weird looks for driving what's essentially a German El Camino. Here it is, gotta go, stay fast, stay furious.
I was going to guess an El Camino off the jump. Okay, but it's German.
From the front, it looks like a kind of a standard... This is from the 80s, so I was going to say like a standard 80s sports car. But from the back, it looks like a weird pickup truck.
Okay.
I think what the El Camino does... And Nico, Kevo, are you guys familiar with the El Camino?
A little.
I would use the phrase passingly.
So here is a picture of the El Camino. This is not the car, but Hector included this in the email. So it kind of makes sense. Like, it's a weird thing
like
still, but like it kind of makes sense as a car. Like, the design at least makes sense. This German El Camino, I would say makes less sense. It's kind of a weird thing. It is white.
Very helpful.
It is
Thank you.
German.
Okay.
It's got European license plates. It's a prototype, so I don't know if this was actually ever made. Let me see if this actually ever got made. This company, apparently they secretly built this pickup truck in 1986.
Okay, but like never like widely released it. Who
No.
made it?
I was
don't-
built and widely released in 1986.
It's a German car.
Is it a Volkswagen?
No.
Is it an Audi?
No.
Is it a Porsche?
No.
Is
The other one.
it a
A
Mercedes?
Vilkeman.
No.
Not Mercedes either?
Isn't Mercedes like Austrian or no?
No. BMW is...
There you go.
Okay. Okay, so it's a BMW pickup truck? El Camino shits?
The type of car that it is, I think, is a standard car that they made for 30 plus years. They haven't made it the last couple of years. They're going to bring it back. But this is a pickup truck variant of this car.
Is it like some weird 7 series? Like 7... The 7 series means 7 and then 2 other numbers.
Nope. It kind of looks like a standard sort of sports car. It's got dual white round headlights in the front with the fog lights, horizontal orange lights underneath. It's a 2-door sedan.
Is it a 5 series then?
Nope.
Because they made like 3, 5, and 7 series. Did they have like a car name of something? It's like a name, not a number.
No, not really. Like, it's not... It's hard to describe, maybe. Like, I don't know if this is... Hold on. So I'm going to say BMW 5 Series. Let's just see what... Boy, if I knew anything about cars, I would be better at this game, but then the game wouldn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Shit. I don't know. Because, like, the 5 Series, there's, like, the E12, the E28.
Those are like when they changed the body types.
It's kind of like that, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Ugh. Can you ask questions?
Does it have a letter in the name,
Yes.
but it's not a word?
Correct. It's a letter and a number.
Is it like an M something?
Uh-huh.
An M7,
Nope. Lower.
M5,
Lower.
M3.
There you go.
Okay, so
It
they
is
made an M3
86
pickup truck version?
BMW M3 pickup prototype.
So the M is the motorsports designation. Mercedes does like AMGs. So like when you see like a Mercedes with AMG, that's like their like motorsports division. This is goofy as fuck. I've never seen
Like,
this thing.
my brain would not allow me to describe it in any other way other than, like, it looks like a pickup truck. Like, I can't, every time I try to describe something, it's like, it just has a truck bed. Like, that's all my brain can see with this.
Yeah, it's a 3 series that they put a truck bed on the back, and like even the back the back window is like really fucking weird.
Right?
It's like, yeah, it's definitely like prototype-y. Like they didn't plan.
Like,
this
from
out.
the front, it looks normal, and then from
It's
the
a
back,
3
you're like, what
series.
the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
Anyway, thanks, Hector.
very interesting. Yeah, that's something I've never seen before.
If you want to email in a car picture, family@cageclub.me. Guys, we've done it. We have now watched every Fast and Furious movie, but in 2 weeks you'll be joining us once more to talk about Fast and Furious Crossroads, the video game that came out earlier this year. So we're going to do some kind of like walkthrough or something video walkthrough on YouTube. Joe and I played it. I played it. Joe watched along. So I guess I'll watch again. I'm not going to play the game again, I don't think. We'll figure that out. But that's coming in 2 weeks. Are you guys excited for a thing that feels different?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting to engage in this uniquery.
There's not a ton of story to it, right? Because it's a game. But I think that the tidbits of story that you'll get are interesting for what it could mean later on to the franchise.
Okay, can I do an eco for a minute? And I mean, obviously, cut what you cut. You're so much better at this than I am. You're so smart, Joey. I love your big smart brain. I have this thing. I'm like such a fucking cocksucker about playing games in exactitude. So like, if I do a Kingdom Hearts replay, I like need to put in the side games on the other systems, especially once they made it so easy and put it all on PS3 like that, right? I really like this game series called Shadow Hearts. So like when I play Shadow Hearts, I play the PS1 game Kudelka first, and then I'll play Shadow Hearts, then I'll play Covenant, and then evidently there's a fourth one I never played. I was thinking about like video game series. I was talking to X's for Podcast host Kyle, and I was like, I want to play some video game series that I've never really given a chance to. And I was like, you know what I've never really played? Like the Donkey Kong series all the way through. So I was like, I'm going to start with the first one. So I took out my Switch and I started playing Donkey Kong. And I was like, oh, right. I guess you don't play as Donkey Kong in the first one. So then I'm like, this is kind of stupid. What sort of narrative sense of the game do I hope to get from playing the original Donkey Kong? Oh, I have a greater understanding of this character now. That one barrel, motherfucker. Like, glad I got the ladder. Like,
Yeah, because there's no real stories in the original games.
Plus, you're just Mario. You're just running up a bunch of ladders, jumping over barrels, right? So it's going to be even weirder. Like, I guess, you're not even playing this. You're watching somebody. I mean, I'm assuming there are going to be multiple walkthroughs. I will sort of do some perusing. The game is about 3.5 hours long. I think you could probably skip through some of the actual action.
I bet there's like a cutscenes only.
Though I feel like there's some like in-game stuff. Like there was a reveal.
Oh, there was. Yeah, that's true.
When we interviewed the game director, he was like, we're actually kind of tease a place. And I was like, oh, you mean this place? He's like, how did you remember that? I'm like, well, because I played the game a bunch of times because I kept dying in that place. So maybe find some stuff that is some like, during the game, there's like some dialogue that characters say. I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
I just restarted Final Fantasy X for Switch, and sometimes I'm like, that this wasn't a cutscene is very lazy, Square Enix. I feel like you owe me a cinematic.
Yeah, just like when Squall and Renoa are at the ball, and she turns and spins and sees him. Like, yeah, beautiful, right?
Leave her in space. He belongs with Zell. Leave her in space.
Man,
8 is like my favorite game of all time.
It's the absolute greatest. What would you guys like to plug? This episode comes out on Tuesday, so you are going to be in the heart of the Ten of Swords trial, right? Or at the end of it on X's for Podcast?
It'll be at the very end of it. It'll be finally fucking over. I've enjoyed it. Been a great time, but it'll be finally over. X's for Podcast will be expanding to our new format. We're kind of changing things up a little bit. We kind of turned it into like the mutant version of The Tonight Show, and there's like cute bumpers and song cues, and you really don't want to miss it. It's kind of me apexing into my ultimate variety show form. So you might just want to listen for the sake of the number of Ed McMahon-esque setups I make Jonah do. Weigh what's more important, your sanity or being cool.
Important, very good to know. And Keva, what's going on with HTML? We are in the heart of Fantastic Four, but are we getting back to Star Wars soon-ish, or is there something else in between?
Oh, something else in between. We have some very exciting holiday events planned for the holiday season, so keep an eye out for that.
Both Thanksgiving and Christmas, or are you just picking one?
There's no such thing as Thanksgiving for me.
What?
There's just Big Holiday. In the name of the Great Big Holiday, Joey, I'm formally inviting you to be part of this year's holiday high art in the form of Holiday Home Makeover with Mr. Christmas on Netflix. It's 4 30-something minute episodes.
I will do it. I was gonna say, is your Christmas? I was gonna make the joke, is your Christmas thing just rewatching Rap Battle? But it seems like it's not that, but essentially that.
Still can't find it.
Yeah, we still can't find it, but essentially that. That is exactly correct.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us, as always, on Too Fast, Too Forever. And we're looking forward to having you back in 2 weeks to talk about Fast and Furious Crossroads.
I'm
stoked.
stoked.
Then, you have to do your exit interview. So I want you to start now thinking about, we don't need it next time, but start thinking about your rankings of these movies. Either from most fun to least fun, from favorite to least favorite, to most Fast and Furious to least Fast and Furious, whatever you want to do.
I always do like a wildly
Okay.
different rankings. Joey always wants me to rank them like best to worst or most favorite to least favorite, but I try to come up with a goofy ranking that fits the lap theme.
Word count.
Yeah, we're exactly length. I'll just rank them by length one time.
Be like, yeah, that's mathematically correct. You are right about that.
You can't argue it.
Do you guys want to plug where you are on social? I mean, people know by now, but if you want to give your social media handles one more time.
Hey everybody, this is Nico Action, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NicoAction. That's Nico Action on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find me at Kevoreally, Kevoreally.
Cool. And while you're over there, just follow Peak Jonah, Peakjonah, to see Jonah too, because I mean, he's around too. So.
And this is all about family.
It
All about
is.
family. But for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, you go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page at TooFast2Forever.com. Come back on Friday for Can I Do Without? Yes, Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3, we are talking about that on Friday. So very exciting with a special guest, I hope, pending schedules to work out. But yes, Spider-Man 3 coming at you on Friday. Tobey Maguire singing and dancing, doing some jazz stuff in Spider-Man 3. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too.
And that was Nico Vasillo and Kevo Reese of Husbands Talking More or Less. And we'll tell you all about it.
When we see you again.
I'm never going to get it right. I'm never going to get it right.